Can be no doubt about that. The U.S. government shut down on October 1st, and there's no sign that it's going to reopen. September 30th is the fiscal year end for the United States Corporation, and it looks like this time they really didn't get the money to continue. Now, what I know from previous experience is that when there is a default at the international level, they're given 15 days to come up with the money. And that means that if I am right about this, starting sometime next week, the U.S. military will no longer be receiving their paychecks, and it will be game over for the current system. I'm hoping this is going to happen, and we're trying to set up a war council to deal with the transition away from the United States Corporation and to something that, once again, restores power to the people. Now, to understand how important this is, I want you to take a look at this picture here. This is the Trump cabinet meeting with the heads of the Chabad Lubavitch organization. These people are not Jews. They worship Satan. Their founder, the fact that the Trump cabinet is in on this is a sign that they need to be removed, and that's why the white hats have placed a 100-kilogram bounty on each person in that photograph. And my understanding is that your friends and your family are removed, arrested, and brought to justice, that the reward can be collected at any BRICS nation embassy, or perhaps or Taiwan or China. In other words, also they have to be removed, and the fact that Trump is in that picture tells you everything. Now, the other thing is, that right now Donald Trump is talking about sending Tomahawk missiles to Russia. Okay? Now, that is nothing more than an attempt to start World War III, because if Tomahawk missiles are sent to Russia, that means only Pentagon officials, U.S. military people, have the ability to carry such attacks out. And that means that they're going to try to start World War III, which is exactly what Chabad wants. And the other thing that the military and the intelligence community need to understand is that the civilian governments in the West are not working for the people. They are controlled by this cult through a combination of blackmail and bribery. Well, you can see that 93 out of 100 senators do not work for the American people. They work for Benjamin Netanyahu, which is, the majority of the people. This is just not right. This is not a system of government. This is a system of slavery. Now, I understand that there is an attempt by Trump to, impose military law, and he wants to use U.S. troops to go after his opponents in the United States. And, to his credit, he is going after Antifa and George Soros and all these, terror groups financed by the Zionists or the Satanists, and that's a good thing. But it's not, it's not enough just to go after your enemies. The whole thing has to be cleaned up, and until we see the Epstein stuff out there, this is not going to work. And the other thing is that there's nothing he can do about the United States being bankrupt. He's not going to be able to extort enough money from Europe or Japan or anywhere else to pay for what he needs to pay for. It's just not going to happen. The whole thing has to be shut down. And as I've said before, the White Hats are standing by with an offer to finance a jubilee in the United States. That means all debt, public and private, will be written off, and there will be a redistribution of assets. All the money that was stolen from the people through central bank fraud will be returned. It should be several $100,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States. So it's good that this thing falls apart. It should have happened a long time ago, but that is what we're going to do now. And there is no other choice. We're going through a very tough transition, but at the end of the day, everyone will be freed from Babylonian debt slavery. That's what we're working on. Now, the other thing that people need to be aware of is that there is evidence now we really are dealing with a rogue artificial intelligence. If you look at the huge amounts of money being spent on AI, on these mega databases by companies like Oracle, NVIDIA, and ChatGPT, you'd think that there's a business plan behind that. But no, the data shows that 95% of companies are unable to make money from AI. In fact, it's now turning out that AI is actually causing productivity to fall because lazy employees use AI to make reports that look plausible, but because AI cannot check facts, it's not connected to reality, it ends up causing more work for coworkers. And right now, this AI thing has gone so far, and this internet stuff has gone so far that 70% of content produced on the internet now is created by AIs, and 60% of communications is bots talking to each other. This is not a good way to use our energy or our money, to have bots talking to each other, and it needs to be removed from the system. They need to unplug all this. I mean, I've been watching some documentaries, and the AI is really awful. Like I was watching a documentary on the Battle of Waterloo, and they had these AI images with cannons firing from the wrong end. Or, they had one on Kennedy where they featured this orange-haired young guy who wasn't Kennedy yet, because AI is unable to distinguish realities. What I'm trying to say is that the one thing that has been booming in the United States, the super high stock market valuations of most of these high-tech companies, is a hallucination. It's one of the biggest bubbles in history, and it is about to burst. The other thing is that France is very close to revolution. I think they lost their 5th prime minister in 2 years, and support for Emmanuel Macron is now at 14%, which is a record low for any French president. And Emmanuel Macron is a front for Jean-Michel de Rothschild. And my French intelligence sources tell me in the satanic hierarchy he is above Donald Trump or any of these other people. So if France falls and Macron is either arrested or flees the country, that will be the first domino. But when it falls, that will result in blackmailed pedophiles like Keir Starmer in the UK, Mark Carney in Canada, the Merz in Germany. All these people will fall, and I'm believing that Trump is not going to last either. That's what I'm hearing. Now, again, like all of you, or most of you, I supported the Trump who was elected in January to clean up the deep state, and he was trying very hard to do that, but he has not been seen since June. So the Trump we're seeing now is a Chabad puppet, not the original Trump from the U.S. Space Force, the white hat Trump. I haven't seen him, but you can tell that the current Trump is compromised because he was there with Alec Bourla of Pfizer promising $70 billion. Bourla should be facing war crimes charges, not, being treated as a hero. And the other thing is, I want you to take a look at this video from Finland showing a journalist being arrested for act. This is fascism, and right now they're trying to pass laws in Canada, the UK, Germany, the US, where if you write something they don't like on the internet, they can arrest you, they can cut you off. They're trying very hard to prevent us from realizing the truth, which is that we're ruled by Satan worshippers who use a system of Babylonian debt slavery. This system is now collapsing. So, I hear the White Hats are going to be holding a war council, and they're going to find concrete ways to move in Mar-a-Lago and arrest all the people there, and move into the Senate and arrest the people there. All the traitors need to be arrested. Now, the other thing is, the breaking news is that Trump did not get the Nobel Prize. It was a Venezuelan opposition leader. So that means that a decision has been made that, Trump cannot continue. He's not viable. So that's a very important thing that's happened. So definitely something big is in the pipeline, and I think the coming week is going to be historical. Let's see what happens, but there will be war councils. There will be a lot of stuff going on in the background. Right now, there are heavy-duty back-channel communications between the U.S. military, British intelligence, and the Russians. But the Chinese are out of the loop in this. This is going to be a Western solution to the Western problems, and then we can deal with China. But first, the West needs to remove its satanic infection, and that's what's going on. Okay, well, that's about what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. Does the Commonwealth exist? If so, who is in control of the Commonwealth, and how can you help us reform this?
The Commonwealth is still very strong, and it's built on a network of personal connections at high levels, and I'm hearing that there's going to be a serious reform in the British royal family, but the key to the Commonwealth becoming viable again is to make sure that India and other Commonwealth members are full participants, because when it existed in the past, it was a sort of a white man's club with white men at the top, and no one could, from India or somewhere else, could rise to the top of the Commonwealth. That is now changing so that it will be possible to have someone from India or Belize or any other Commonwealth country run the organization. And they have historical links. They're linked by the English language. They have sports meetings and lots of personal communications. And it wasn't really an evil organization, although it had its flaws. And I think the Commonwealth will become increasingly important. And behind the scenes, the Commonwealth has been allied with China to do the Belt and Road Initiative and other peaceful things for the good of the planet. So I'm a great supporter of the Commonwealth, and I'm hoping it will be reformed so that it continues to stay as a major force for friendship and good relations between nations. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Trump is visiting Japan on October 27th. The objective may be stripping money from Japan as the U.S. is bankrupt. Nonetheless, Japan has no money to save U.S. bankruptcy, as the agriculture bank Nochu has lost a huge amount of money in the U.S. bond market, and I cannot imagine any significant amount of money is left in Japan. Inform us why Trump is coming to Japan, and if Trump's objective is money to avoid U.S. bankruptcy, where is this money in Japan?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is going to come to try to extort money. I don't know if he'll be around until then. I'm hoping not. But, the thing with the Japan Agricultural Bank is a real crime. You see, the Norinchukin, the Japanese Agricultural Bank, is actually a real bank in the sense that it's 100% deposit base. It's all its money is actual deposits. And most U.S. banks, more than 90% of what they lend is not backed by deposits. It's just money they put on their books out of nothing. So what happened was they used pressure on Norinchukin, probably threatened to kill their management or something, to force them to hand over money, which is, disguised as bond losses. And then Norinchukin, to recoup that, raised the price of rice drastically in Japan, which caused a popular revolt against the Japanese government. And, the government, I mean, when people's food is impacted, that's when the, sleeping masses wake up, because that's something that they're not going to stand. So I guarantee you, even if he does come, he'll leave empty-handed, because Japan has nothing to hand over. The same is true of Europe. Germany's economy is 20% smaller than it was in 2018 because it's been forced to buy expensive oil and gas from the United States, and the Europeans do not have the 1.3 trillion to give the U.S. that they think. So I doubt he'll come, but if he does, he'll leave empty-handed, and hopefully, if he does show up, they'll arrest him for war crimes. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Can you clarify if the military brass attended that meeting that was called? You originally said in your Monday newsletter they wouldn't attend because it was possibly a trap. Real Raw News is stating that about 250 were requested to take polygraph tests to prove if they were loyal to Trump. I know RRN isn't 100% to be trusted, but it's an interesting take since you initially said it might be a trap. If they did decide to go, what was the action? What was the actual purpose?
Well, I did talk to people about that, and the conclusion was that they made sure that everybody would be safe. But the speech that Trump made and then that Hegseth made was very badly received. But right now, a large part of the military is still following Trump because he's their nominal commander in chief. But a growing group is aware that the real Trump has been replaced by a fake and that their commander in chief is not there. But there is a group that is still trying to start or use a threat to start World War III in order to get more money to keep the U.S. government going. But I don't think it's going to work. So what will probably happen is when the military stop getting their paychecks, they'll finally wake up. But I do know there's been a split with the Five Eyes, and so that right now at the highest level of the intelligence community, they are no longer with Trump, and they're negotiating with Russia for Ukraine peace, and also Israel has basically lost the war in Gaza, and Egypt has moved in. So we'll see, but there is still a group in the military that probably has some sort of compromat held against them that is still behind Trump. That's the reality right now. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Wasn't 9/11 and Iraq thing all connected with Bush and Tony Blair? The same Tony Blair that hasn't gone away despite the links. Instead, he's made a, quote, sir, for what it's worth. Now they're handing him out Disney tickets, like Disney tickets these days. Instead of being somewhere else more deserving, Blair has allegedly snagged the being in charge of Gaza role. Have you heard anything about this?
What I heard is the reason Tony Blair was not executed for his pedophile crimes and other things is that he secretly provided a lot of testimony about the cabal and Epstein Island and all that kind of stuff. But there's no way on earth that he's going to be made governor of Gaza. As I mentioned earlier, the Egyptians are actually in there now. Israel's actually lost the war. The only thing we're seeing is fake news on our screens, but that's not the reality on the ground in Israel. And I'm sure that Israel is about to be replaced by the multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious state of Judea. And Blair will have no role in that. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. Another earthquake has hit the Philippines. This is the second earthquake this month. Is this some form of super weapon or is it natural?
I'd have to look into that, but as a general rule, if it's an artificial earthquake, you have to look at the seismograph because it has a telltale sign. It starts with a big bang and then boom, 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 like that. Whereas if it's natural, it goes boom, 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 boom. And the other thing is you have to look at where it was, because if the earthquake started around a military base, then you can tell it was some kind of weapons attack. I'll have to look into that, but you can do your own research by looking for the seismograph and seeing if there's a military base around the epicenter. Okay, well, that's what I have to say this week. But like I say, we're going to try behind the scenes to set up a war council and put an end to this nightmare because it's gone on way too long. And I think next week we'll see a lot of historical stuff. And I'm hearing that from my Pentagon sources too. They say something. Let's start with President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet choices. There's some good news. Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his nomination as Attorney General, and Pam Bondi, Florida Attorney General, is now the new candidate. And she, unlike Gaetz, is on the record as being against pedophiles and sex criminals. So this is a sign that there will be a crackdown. Furthermore, Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, has said that a lot of the 300,000 or over 300,000 missing children who crossed the border into the U.S. Went to pedophiles, and that they're going to investigate that. So it looks like we have a real crackdown on these, in the public domain. And of course, they're freaking out big time. The Khazarian mafia are still desperately trying to start World War III, but the military is not listening to them. They tried this long, missile attack into Russia because Russia had previously warned that such an attack could lead to nuclear war. But instead, the Russians know very well that these people are trying to start World War III, and they're not going to let them do that. But they did retaliate with a weapon that's never been seen before, and it's a multi-warhead ICBM but non-nuclear missile. So what the Russians have done, as you can see, is demonstrate that they know who they're dealing with, and that it's not the real governments of the United States and the West. They're dealing with a rogue faction that is about to be removed from power. And they are getting desperate. I mean, there's now shredding trucks outside the Justice Department. They're trying to shred documents to hide evidence. And they're doing other things. So I'm hearing that, if things get too bad, there will be some kind of military action inside the U.S. before January 20th. In other words, we don't want to leave these criminals on the loose and in power much longer. Now, the other thing that's going on, of course, is the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and others, including Hamas members who, work with Netanyahu or Netanyahu. And this is a clear sign that there's some kind of crackdown that's going on, and that these people will face justice for their crimes in Gaza and in Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky is also going down as a war criminal, but more important, we're going to see removal of governments in Canada and the UK and Australia, and probably New Zealand as well, as the regime change in the Five Eyes continues. Now, as far as Canada is concerned, it looks like Donald Trump is taking up the offer to become the first president of the United States of North America. And believe me, Canada does not have a functioning government right now. It is controlled by criminals who stole the election with the help of Alex Soros. And Alex Soros, by the way, is threatening to hit the people with, no, Alex Soros, you're going to jail and probably going to face the death penalty. So, think about that, because it's going to happen. Now, getting back to Canada, I want you to watch this clip to see what sort of farce substitutes as government in Canada now. So you can see that the Speaker of the House, who's the homosexual lover of Cass Trudeau, according to the CIA, is cutting off the mic to prevent a member of Parliament from speaking. That's what happens in dictatorships, not in Canada. And it's to my great shame as a Canadian that the Canadian military and intelligence agencies were unable to prevent the takeover of that country by Nazis. But in any case, Trump is probably going to take over. We'll see. And I have some direct involvement with that. Some Space Force people have contacted me. These are people I've met before who demonstrated some very unusual off-world Tesla technology. They are now in a certain Asian country to do the due diligence to confirm that there is gold to back the Future Planning Agency, and also this will help write off all U.S. and probably world debt, and we'll have a fresh start. There'll be a talk with Asian secret society representatives on Sunday to confirm this. And if the gold, if we can't prove the gold is there, then we'll have to start negotiations on a basket of commodities to back the financial system. But this is happening, and I try to avoid, woo-woo topics. I'm a here now guy in the real world, operating on real news. But my Japanese military intelligence sources have told me that some very unusual anti-gravity craft have landed at the Yokota Air Base in Tokyo with members of the Secret Space Force. I will believe it 100% when I actually see it myself. I have asked for a chance to ride on an anti-gravity craft and then film it and share it with my audience. But until you see that or you ride one yourself, take all this with a grain of salt. But we are hearing from these sources, and it's becoming harder and harder to deny, that the quarantine on the planet Earth may be about to end and that we'll be allowed off-world. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, I can get on an airplane and fly to Canada, but I cannot get on a flying saucer and fly to Mars. So we'll see. But it's getting more realistic, and there's more and more different sources confirming this. So again, until you see it with your own eyes, don't believe it 100%. But clearly, what's happening now is a lot more than just a presidential election. I really do think that this is the beginning of a new age, and I am hoping that we're going to be very pleasantly surprised many, many ways over the coming months. Let's see what happens. But it's clear the White Hats have won, and it's a mopping up operation now. So, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from viewers and readers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. What are your thoughts on Trump's cabinet picks so far? How do you feel about him picking Dr. Oz to run Medicaid and Medicare services? To me, it seems a little comical, as Dr. Oz was involved in pushing back quack supplements that he claimed were miracles for weight loss.
I'm going to defer on that because I don't know enough about this guy, but the important thing is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's going to crack down on the systematic poisoning of the American people and Japanese and other people by the pharmaceutical industrial complex. So that's the one to watch. And as far as supplements are concerned, they're going to have scientific evidence to back their claims. Otherwise, they'll be cracked down on by the authorities, which is what they should have done in the first place. And now the other cabinet member I forgot to mention in my talk was the Commerce Secretary. I think it's Ludnick or something. He was the crypto guy that Elon Musk was pushing for Secretary of the Treasury. And the fact that he didn't get that job is further proof that they're going with the gold-backed system and not going to try to go into crypto. So that's an interesting pick. And also, it looks like it means they're going to try to come up with a deal with China that does not involve tariffs. It'll involve instead getting Chinese help to rebuild U.S. industry so that the United States does not have a chronic trade deficit with the rest of the world. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. Do you think the Biden administration will start World War III with Russia before Trump can get into office? I read recently that Ukraine struck Russia with U.S. missiles, not to mention that Putin said they would go nuclear if this occurred. How far do you think this will be taken?
My understanding, as I mentioned in my talk, is that the world's top military are not obeying the people behind the fake Biden administration, and they're not going to be fooled into starting World War III, which is the only get-out-of-jail card these Khazari mafia have now. By the way, another thing I forgot to mention is that there was some kind of mysterious heavy-duty airstrike on Palmyra in Syria, and that's where they had the Ark of Satan And again, I don't, I try to avoid woo-woo stuff, but I'm hearing that some kind of portal was shut. Again, I'll believe it when I see it, but that's what I'm hearing. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. It has been my understanding that Donald J. Trump supports Israel, but not the Zionists. The Zionists are the cabal satanic regime controlling Israel, and Donald J. Trump will take down the Zionists to free the Israeli people from their evil tyranny. Am I wrong in thinking this?
I believe you're right. The Jewish people are going to be liberated after thousands of years of slavery under Babylonian Satanists, and Israel will be replaced by the nation state of Judea that will include the native Judeans, misleadingly called Palestinians, with full citizenship rights. That's what I'm hearing. So yes, he's going to help liberate the Jews. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Russell J. Gold discovered that the U.S. bankruptcy was ending in 1999. Since then, USA corporations ceased to exist. He captured our flag and became CIC and Postmaster General. Since then, all these presidents have been selected and are illegitimate. He has developed a quantum financial system. Do you have any knowledge of him or what he's been doing? He says he has been beaten to death a couple of times over this because they were trying to get him to surrender, which tells me he is legitimate. Please enlighten us on this if you can. I was wondering if he is now working with Trump.
I don't know about this, but I do know that I actually know the person who developed the quantum financial system, and it's not him. And furthermore, the quantum financial system is already operating. People still mistakenly think that it's a SWIFT system that runs international finance. That is an old legacy system that uses Windows Vista, and it's used mainly by drug dealers now. And when I go to an ATM in Japan and withdraw money from a Canadian bank account, that is the quantum financial system. It's not run by him. It's right now going to be handed over, I hear, to the Future Planning Agency, depending the outcome of negotiations with the Asian secret societies. But I don't know more about this individual to make a meaningful comment. Other than that, I can confirm he did not start the quantum financial system, and he is not president of anything that I'm aware of. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. You mentioned last week that we should stop paying rent and not paying bond payments. Does this mean that if I have a property that someone is renting, I will lose the property? What about us that have worked hard to own separate properties to collect rental income?
The proposal we have on the table is that when everybody is given ownership rights to their residence, their primary residence, that landlords, with the exception of, mega landlords like Vanguard and State Street, but, the average little old lady living off rent will be given the equivalent of rental income in government money so that they will not suffer any loss of income. That's the plan on the table, but it's all going to be worked out in public with a lot of input from the people before this is actually implemented. But we understand that legitimate landlords need to be compensated and will be. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week, and let's see if we can finally get some rides on flying saucers before too long, maybe by next week, but only believe it when you see it. Anyway, I hope to...
Restored Republic via GCR. Judy note. See prepare yourself, the storm will break with QFS, Tier 4B Saturday 22nd of August, 2026. From Sunday 23rd of August, 2026 the QFS is no longer a test, it's the dawn of transparency, accountability, and freedom from cabal control. The countdown has begun, and there's nowhere left for the elites to hide. The quantum financial system is here to end every lie and deception ever used against us. Monday, August 10, 2026 breaking, the four portals of the quantum financial system, QFS, USA, European, UK, Netherlands and Asia-Africa-Australia portals are set to connect and transform the world. Discover how these portals will bring transparency, asset-backed currencies, and global financial freedom, ending deep state control. The Quantum Financial System, QFS, is here, set to forever change how the world handles money. The era of corrupt financial practices, hidden transactions, and deep state manipulation is coming to an end. The QFS promises transparency, security, and direct control over personal finances. The system operates through its 4 portals, gateways connecting the world's financial networks. This isn't just another financial overhaul, it's a transformation of the global economy. The 4 portals of the QFS connect continents and bring financial autonomy to millions. 1. USA Portal, the lifeblood of the Americas, covering North, Central, and South America. The USA Portal ensures connection to the QFS across the Western Hemisphere. The introduction of the U.S. note, USN, an asset-backed currency tied to gold and silver, replaces the corrupt system centered around the U.S. dollar. With this shift, the Federal Reserve's control over the American economy ends, marking the collapse of the fiat system. Impact on everyday people. The USA Portal will empower citizens from Canada to Chile with direct access to their wealth, free from bank manipulation. This portal brings unprecedented stability through the USN, an asset-backed currency providing financial sovereignty across the continent. 2. European Portal, reclaiming financial sovereignty, breaking free from the euro. The European Portal allows countries like Netherlands, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany to reclaim financial independence. Each nation will issue its own QFS-linked currency backed by assets, ensuring the end of financial manipulation. A united, yet independent Europe. Under the QFS, each country will manage its economy independently while retaining transparency and security. This shift means financial freedom for individuals and national autonomy, signaling the end of the deep state's control over Europe's financial systems. 3. UK Portal, a return to sterling strength. The UK Portal introduces the sterling token, an asset-backed currency restoring financial independence to England. This new currency, supported by the QFS, ends Britain's reliance on the euro and deep state influence, with each transaction secure and traceable. 4. Asia-Africa-Australia Portal, a continental shift in power. Covering a vast area including India, South Africa, Australia, and all of Asia, this portal represents a seismic shift in global financial power. The QFS will support these nations with asset-backed currencies, promoting economic prosperity from their own resources rather than exploitation by external forces. Unleashing a new wave of prosperity, Asia, Africa, Netherlands, and Australia, once battlegrounds for financial manipulation, will experience newfound prosperity. This portal promises a future where wealth benefits the people and economies of these regions, free from external interference. The grip of the deep state is loosening as financial freedom becomes a reality. The Tier 4B activation, the secure satellite uplink to the non-custodial Tier 4B validation terminals has transitioned from testing to live execution. The asset-backed sovereign funds, backed by the physical gold re-anchored to the U.S. Treasury, are now officially mapped to the local routing networks. The Quantum Handshake. Over 12,000 regional and local credit unions have successfully integrated the ISO 20022 protocol over the last 4 hours. The corrupt Tier 1 mega banks that refuse to comply with the asset-backed standards have had their settlement privileges permanently revoked by the military alliance. The Nizara liquidations, the hidden offshore pools used by the globalist corporations to short the markets and suppress humanity, have been completely drained. Those funds have been legally redirected into the primary redemption accounts. The distribution protocols are locked. They told you the old system was too big to fail. They wanted you to believe you were trapped in their endless debt loop forever. Look at the sudden, forced updates on your personal banking apps tonight. Look at the emergency internal memos leaked from the administrative floors of Wall Street. The old world didn't just crash. The keys to the entire global wealth ledger were handed back to the people. The ghost currency is evaporating. The real asset-backed era is officially online. You held the line through the darkest hours of the deception. Now, watch the monitors as the old machine loses its power forever. 022 Sovereign, the reconciliation begins. The countdown has hit 0. The new dawn is already here. Global Currency Reset. On Thursday, August 20, 2026 at exactly 8:14 p.m. Eastern, the old SWIFT Central Clearinghouse experienced a permanent database decoupling. The secondary handshake between the central banks of the G7 nations officially returned a terminal failure message. Thursday, 20 August 2026. Bruce, the big call, a higher-up said they were handling bonds in Miami, Geneva, and Reno. A military intel person said that as of 6 p.m. EST on Wednesday 19/20/26 there was a 5-day window where Tier 4B would receive notification to set exchange/redemption appointments and be able to start appointments. That would take it to Monday, August 24, 2026. On Thursday, 20th of August, Redemption Center leaders received saying that they should go into work on Friday, August 21, 2026 at 8:45 a.m. Thursday, August 20, 2026 Paymasters report full release. Direct confirmations have been sent to private transaction platforms in Reno and Zurich confirming that Tier 1 and Tier 2 payouts had been finalized. Tier 3 and Tier 4A, be next. If you're in the private groups, get ready now. Military movements confirmed to secure transition. Sources in Intel report increased security around major financial centers. Private security details have been deployed to Reno, Zurich, and Dubai. Special ops teams were making sure no foreign interference upsets this historic shift in global power. On Monday, August 24, 2026, the ISO 20022 messaging, that defines how banks transmit payment information, completes its transition across all major banking rails. For the first time in history, SWIFT, Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, Bank of England, BRICS, IMF and all high-value cross-border payment systems will speak the same transaction language. August 18, 2026. The first week in September 2026, redemption centers will start processing live appointments in accordance with full JESR protocol. The schedule is already being filled with authorized, Tier 4B, participants, according to sources within 2 U.S. agencies. Judy note, your exchange/redemption appointment, as far as I know, which may be incorrect. Anyone who has bought foreign currency and/or ZIM bonds from a valid deal, text or phone to obtain an 800 number and code used to set your exchange/redemption appointment at a redemption center of your choice. Get your plans/projects together and don't wait around for this to happen without being ready. No straight cash will be given. You are in charge of your funds and can place funds in different accounts. Advisors will be there to assist you with your funds and will help guide you in your projects or choosing one on the list. You can take to your appointment advisors/bank contacts, if you have already spoken to a specific person, friend/any person/s you want to assist you. ZimCap information is changing daily, but as of now they are paying as follows: no projects equals 15 million no matter amount you might hold, with projects equals first 2 bond notes are 1-to-1 after this 25 million, per 100 T, up to 30 bond notes. To negotiate further you will need to return. If you are a ZIM holder and in dire medical need, you might be able to set a medbed appointment at your redemption. This was because they are anxious to get the humanitarian programs going that were funded by your ZIM bonds. Movements of Global Military Alliance as of Tuesday, August 11, 2026, Saturday 22nd of August, 2026, Global Military Alliance secures mainframe access to Central Intelligence and Deep State data servers, exposing direct funding trails to global manipulation campaigns. Emergency Special Operations Teams confiscate multi-billion-dollar offshore gold reserves and digital asset vaults tied to compromised sovereign wealth funds. Mass detentions of senior international corporate directors and financial technocrats implicated in designing global supply chain bottlenecks and artificial scarcity networks. Space Force defense units neutralize foreign satellite infrastructure used by elite cabal networks for encrypted command and control operations. Over 100,000 military tribunal prosecutors and investigators deployed across secure jurisdictions to process millions of pages of recovered digital evidence and witness depositions. Tuesday, August 11, 2026, complete shutdown of compromised SWIFT financial messaging nodes and commercial banking verification gateways. Global command structures confirm that the transition to direct military oversight of critical infrastructure is 100% complete. The old power structure is unable to recover or communicate. All secure channels are on standby for the imminent broadcast of documentary archives and prosecution logs across all intercepted networks. The final systemic dismantling of the elite class is reaching its culmination. Maintain operational awareness and monitor verified disclosure feeds. The Reset, eye-breaking dossier, Jerome Powell is enemy number 1 of finance, federal court moves to crush Federal Reserve. August 22, 2026. Something unthinkable just happened. A federal court just dropped the hammer on Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, revealing a secret economic war on the American people. Powell, who has long been portrayed as an impartial economist, is now revealed as a globalist enforcer running a monetary dictatorship behind closed doors. His title is Fed Chair, but what is his job? The number one financial enemy. The Federal Reserve has been a shadow government for over a century, setting interest rates, printing debt-based currency and engineering booms and busts while being above the law. But under Powell it became something darker. The execution arm of the globalist Great Reset. It is not serving America. It serves Davos. And the numbers tell the story. Over $2 trillion in deficit spending, $1 trillion in interest payments, and mortgage rates so high that the American dream has collapsed. At the same time Wall Street, BlackRock and the WEF dine on the spoils. Trump was correct, the Fed doesn't work for the people. It serves a world syndicate. In a landmark decision, a judge ordered an emergency injunction stopping the secretive FOMC meetings of the Fed. The court has indicated that Powell's fortress of secrecy could be breached, revealing decades of backroom deals, rate manipulation and financial sabotage. Trump's legal offensive is in full swing, demanding total transparency, criminal investigations, and the destruction of Powell's grip on the American economy. This is not policy debate, it's economic war. Powell's Fed has used rate hikes to crush families, block home ownership and swell big bank profits. Gold has soared 28% this year, a global vote of no confidence in Mr. Powell's leadership. The dollar is in free fall. The pain is real, and not accidentally. Behind Powell, a deeper alliance is emerging. BlackRock and Big Pharma are a triad of finance that is using the central bank system to take away Americans' wealth, ownership and independence. Powell is the man on the gun. The money comes from the Fed. BlackRock purchases the assets. Pharma keeps you trapped on lifetime prescriptions, paid for by inflation printed by the Fed. That's coordinated control. Trump is the only world leader calling this out by name. While others bow down to Klaus Schwab and the tyranny of central banks, Trump is calling for a full audit of the Fed, criminal charges against Powell, and a complete separation from the globalist cartel. This is not about interest rates now, it's about national emancipation. America is writing its Declaration of Financial Independence now. No more unelected bankers running the economy. No more secret meetings deciding your future. No more debt slavery in the name of policy. End the Fed. Break up the cartel. Justice for the treasoners. Jerome Powell is not a public servant. He is the monetary arm of an occupying power, and his empire is coming apart at the seams. Trump's cracking the whip. And the people are ready to tear it down. Friday, August 22, 2026, the public still believes they're living in the same world they woke up in yesterday. But the foundations of that world, the banking grid, the medical grid, the communication grid, even the military command structure, have already shifted into a new architecture. And the transition happened without a single announcement. The first crack appeared on November 11, 2025, when a secure military node in Colorado Springs went dark for exactly 47 seconds. They called it a routine system refresh. But the internal logs proved otherwise. Those 47 seconds marked the first QFS mirror link activation, where the old ledger was shadow copied into the new quantum frame. Then came the second break, December 7, 2025. DC went offline in a synchronized pattern that has only been documented twice in American history. The press didn't cover it. The banks pretended nothing happened. But insiders know that this was the moment the old financial lifelines were severed from the global routing network. And that was merely the prescript. On December 10, 2025 to 3:14 UTC, the back end of the system registered the first Tier 4B authorization ping. The signal wasn't visible to the public. It was encoded, transmitted through quantum routers, and acknowledged by a classified military oversight node. Only 24 people in the country even saw it. But that was the moment the transition stopped being theoretical, and became operational. This brings us to the date they fear most, January 1, 2026, the transition window. This is the moment everything was timed for. The blackout drills. The EBS tests. The digital migration patches that accidentally took down social media servers across the country. The silent coordination between Trump, military intelligence, and the restricted QFS task force. None of these were random. They were phase markers, hidden in plain sight. You will not hear a warning. The system will not ask for permission. There will be no press conference announcing the end of the old order. The old grid will simply stop responding. And the new one will boot up in front of you. Here's what is already verified behind the curtain. QFS ledger sync at 86% global completion, core Fed wire channels detached from source, medbed chambers pre-powered and on standby, military oversight activated under Contingency Protocol 22B, EBS routing tables rewritten for rapid national broadcast. The transition isn't coming, the transition is in motion. And most people will only realize it when their old system fails to answer. And the new one takes its first breath. Remember this when everything goes silent. The system was replaced. I told the worker that they had just been flown in recently from the Gaza Strip, that they were members of Hamas, that I was unsure of their citizenship status. I said to them about like 3 times, I was like, just so you're aware, like they're members of Hamas. They just got here. They just kept telling me the same thing, which is, look, as long as you vouch for it, that's as far as our check goes. Saturday 22nd of August. 2026. Mike Lindell conducting largest election recount in U.S. history. A full-hand recount of the Minnesota governor's primary election will take place, and will be privately funded by Mike Lindell, which will cover all ballots, counts, anomalies and election night. Saturday 22nd of August. 2026. Representative Anna Paulina Luna says China is funding Democrat Socialist candidates. DSA is absolutely funded and tied to the Communist Chinese Party. We know, for instance, in their mega donors like Neville Royce Ingham, who are currently under investigation by the Department of Justice. Saturday 22nd of August. 2026, this 1967 recording explains everything happening today. Saturday 22nd of August. 2026, explosive report, 25,000 pages. One verdict, guilty. Putin delivers 25,000-page mRNA dossier to Trump, time to arrest Bill Gates for mRNA crimes. Saturday 22nd of August. 2026, bombshell announcement, Trump ends tax on Social Security, America's seniors finally keep what they earned, no tax on Social Security. Saturday 22nd of August. 2026, breaking, Trump unloads on Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, calls them 3 losers in a scorching political takedown. But at 8:46 a.m. the first tower was hit. By 10 a.m. the world was in smoke, the announcement silenced, the gold and silver inside Building 7 vanished, and the truth was buried beneath rubble and propaganda. They murdered thousands to erase one law, and stole trillions to protect a system of slavery. But Nizara did not die. In 1993 the Supreme Court ruled in favor of farmers against the banks. The evidence was clear: fraudulent foreclosures, illegal taxation, a government in collusion with the Federal Reserve. The 16th Amendment had never been ratified. It was a lie, a century-long deception. The justices knew reform was inevitable, and they placed guardians to monitor the process. That process was never stopped. It was only delayed. The ink on Clinton's signature remained valid. The law still breathes. For 2 decades the deep state played its theater. Wars in the Middle East. Manufactured recessions. Financial crashes and bailouts. Presidents came and went, but behind the curtain the same bloodlines pulled the strings. Yet during this darkness, another current was moving. The White Hat Alliance built silently. Continuity of government was activated. Starlink satellites aligned. The quantum financial system was constructed. A living network immune to corruption, tied not to fiat but to energy signatures, transparency, truth. Now in 2025, the fracture is visible. The old system bleeds. Currencies wobble, nations break from the petrodollar, and whispers of Nizara rise again. The emergency broadcast system waits armed, ready to override every screen on Earth. The QFS hums beneath the surface, prepared to dissolve debt, erase slavery money, and install a new golden architecture. The plan is precise. When the switch is thrown, 2 streams collide: first the EBS, unmasking crimes, broadcasting tribunals, forcing the world to face the scale of deception, then the QFS, resetting the global economy, ending the Federal Reserve, releasing humanity from a century of theft. They will call it the Great Silence, 10 days where the internet goes dark, banks shutter, ATMs fail, and every channel becomes disclosure. But when that silence ends, humanity will wake into a reality it was promised long ago: Nizara fulfilled, QFS operational, EBS completed. What they buried on September 11th returns like a sword through the heart of the beast. This is not speculation. The law exists. The infrastructure exists. The guardians exist. The only unknown is the moment of ignition. So prepare your spirit, steady your mind, and hold your ground. Because when the signal breaks, the world you knew will collapse in hours, and the world they hid will rise in light. NISRA is not a dream. QFS is not theory. EBS is not a rumor. All three are real, and all three converge in our time. The question is not if. The question is when. And when that moment comes, nothing will ever be the same again. The House of Orsini claimed to trace themselves back to the Julio-Chadian dynasty of the old Roman Empire, according to Julian Assange. They are the heads of the 13 Venetian black nobility bloodlines. They founded the Jesuit order, and control the Vatican. They also control the Rothschild and Rockefeller families. Domenico Napoleone Orsini, nicknamed Pepe Orsini, is the most powerful man on earth. He is known as the Grey Pope. The Grey Pope controls the White Pope and Black Pope. Pepe Orsini wields unimaginable wealth and power, and he pulls the strings of presidents, prime ministers, and organized crime syndicates around the world, from behind closed doors. This is who Trump and his global military alliance were fighting. Pepe Orsini is head of the deep state Satan-worshipping Illuminati cabal foreign banker elites who rule the world. They overrule the health industry and control the world's financial system. That way they control the people, and you don't even know it. Since 1896, when Tesla discovered how the body could heal itself through frequencies, these most powerful technologies have been locked behind closed doors by this deep state cabal. Kept in private clinics. Used in exclusive recovery rooms by those who could afford to never be sick. While the world was given pills to manage symptoms, drugs known to break down the body's immune system, the Satan-worshipping Illuminati cabal foreign banker elites were regenerating at the cellular level. The cabal kept it from you because if you knew what they did, their whole medical and pharmaceutical industries would go broke. Couldn't have that. The cabal Rockefellers and Carnegies had made sure the health field rejected natural healing through proper nutrition way back in 1910. In 1910, Rockefeller funded the Flexner Report that led to the closure of medical schools teaching homeopathy, naturopathy and other alternative methods. U.S. Incorporated owned the Federal Reserve, collected U.S. taxpayer monies through their own IRS and then sent the monies to the privately owned UK Crown in London. The Crown used the monies as they wished and then sent it on to the privately owned by Rothschild Vatican Bank and to their central banks across the world. About a month later the monies were returned to a Rothschild cabal-owned New York bank, which then lent the monies back, with interest, to the U.S. government to pay their federal employees. Congress has never approved a balanced budget, so the unregulated monies, along with owed interest, created the national debt. With the 1933 bankruptcy, the cabal needed to save their central banks across the world, so they pledged every American citizen as collateral to back U.S. debt. Gold was confiscated. Debt-based money was introduced. Your birth certificate was converted into a bond and sold to international investors. The system calculated your worth, traded it, and profited from you, without you ever seeing a cent. These elites don't see you as a free individual, they see you as an economic unit, taxed, tracked, and controlled to keep the system alive. And, they not only stole your taxpayer monies, but created a medical and pharmaceutical system where they stole your health as well. Spitting. According to Julian Assange, Trump has also signed a military arrest warrant charging Barack Obama with treason. Obama has been leading the deep state attack on our freedom. In the upcoming election, Trump can just sit back and do nothing, while the traitorous Democrats conspire with our foreign adversaries and use illegals to steal elections, overthrow our nation from within, and complete their communist takeover. Or, he can do what Trump does, act. Though, the problems are so vast that it's going to take more than the couple of years Trump has left in the president's seat. Perhaps an answer lay with going back to original concepts of the 1787 Constitution. A major pillar of the current military strategy involves the delegitimization of the 22nd Amendment. According to the below, historically, the limitation of presidential terms was a voluntary tradition established by George Washington, but it was not codified until the mid-20th century. This amendment was a strategic maneuver by deep state networks to prevent a populist president from holding power long enough to dismantle entrenched administrative structures. The strategic marker Trump 2028 serves as a signal for the final phase of legal reconstruction. By asserting that fraud vitiates every legal layer built upon it, the panel suggests that the original 1787 Constitution, which contained no term limits, is being restored as the primary law of the land. Under this framework, the upcoming years are viewed not as an extension of a civilian term, but as a transition back to a primal republic of sovereigns. Trump 2028 bombshell, the 22nd Amendment, the end of the two-party system and the battle for a restored American republic. Possible timing, President Trump has given the green light. He has activated the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, mobilized 300,000 troops, ordered the global military alliance to take over the mainstream fake news media and make mass arrests, Mr. Poole on Telegram Wednesday 19 August. 2026. No official time frame has been given where we will begin isolating at home for 3 to 6 weeks after the global military alliance suspended the media, internet, phones and took over TV and radio to present 8-hour documentaries 24/7 about what was going on while the military took down the Illuminati deep state cabal-controlled governments worldwide and made mass arrests of corrupt global elites. August 18, 2026. No official time frame has been given Trump CBS activation where we will isolate at home for 3 to 6 weeks as global martial law suspended the media, internet, phones and took over TV and radio to present 8-hour documentaries 24/7 about what was going on while the military took down the Illuminati deep state cabal-controlled governments worldwide and made mass arrests of corrupt global elites. August 18, 2026. Global currency reset. On Thursday, August 20, 2026 at exactly 8:14 p.m. Eastern, the old SWIFT Central Clearinghouse experienced a permanent database decoupling. The secondary handshake between the central banks of the G7 nations officially returned a terminal failure message. Thursday, 20 August 2026 Bruce, the big call, a higher-up said they were handling bonds in Miami, Geneva, and Reno. A military intel person said that as of 6 p.m. EST on Wednesday 19, 2026 there was a 5-day window where Tier 4B would receive notification to set exchange/redemption appointments and be able to start appointments. That would take it to Monday, August 24, 2026. On Thursday 20th of August, Redemption Center leaders received saying that they should go into work on Friday, August 21, 2026 at 8:45 a.m. Thursday, August 20, 2026 Paymasters report full release. Direct confirmations have been sent to private transaction platforms in Reno and Zurich confirming that Tier 1 and Tier 2 payouts had been finalized. Tier 3 and Tier 4A, be next. If you're in the private groups, get ready now. Military movements confirmed to secure transition. Sources in Intel report increased security around major financial centers. Private security details have been deployed to Reno, Zurich, and Dubai. Special ops teams were making sure no foreign interference upsets this historic shift in global power. On Monday, August 24, 2026 the ISO 20022 messaging, that defines how banks transmit payment information, completes its transition across all major banking rails. For the first time in history SWIFT, Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, Bank of England, BRICS, IMF and all high-value cross-border payment systems will speak the same transaction language. August 18, 2026. The first week in September 2026 redemption centers will start processing live appointments in accordance with full JASR protocol. The schedule is already being filled with authorized, Tier 4B, participants, according to sources within 2 U.S. agencies. In the context of GCR, Global Currency Reset, JFK Jr. Command Center on Telegram Friday, August 21, 2026, in the realm of the Global Currency Reset. Tier 1 to 5 has an entirely different meaning. It represents a hierarchy of awareness, readiness, and access. Tier 1, central banks, sovereign treasuries, financial elites. Tier 2, private banking institutions, massive trusts, religious financial networks. Tier 3, historical bondholders, private wealth families, whales. Tier 4A, military-connected insiders and operatives. Tier 4B, the awakened digital community, YOU. Tier 5, the general unaware public. 22nd of August, 2026, Friday, August 21, 2026, breaking special report, the Outlaw Ledger, Canada is not a partner. It's an empire. Friday, August 21, 2026, financial collapse warning, Professor Zhang calls the U.S. economy a Ponzi scheme, Scott Bessent fights back as the 50-year petrodollar system begins to crack. Friday, August 21, 2026, Bombshell announcement, President Trump doubles down on CBDC ban. I signed a historic executive order banning any attempt to create a central bank digital currency. Friday, August 21, 2026, explosive report, Scott Bessent erupts over tariff refunds. The American people had the money. And we were forced to give IT back. Friday, August 21, 2026, blackout files, Gates, Bezos, and Thiel exposed, funding the world's largest pedophile network, turning schools into grooming labs under a total media blackout. Friday, August 21, 2026, breaking U.S. debt clock detonation, viral coming soon message inspires millions with vision of a new American economic system featuring 0% income tax, 0% property tax and 0% gains tax, May 16, 2026. Friday, August 21, 2026, Edward Snowden sounds the alarm, the digital surveillance machine is already here, they can control your device, your data, your life. Joe Rogan, Friday, August 21, 2026, boom. RFK Jr. exposes the lie, they had to destroy ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, a drug that saved billions. Breaking, the U.S. military has shocked Iran, quietly establishing a shipping lane in and out of the Strait of Hormuz where now millions of barrels of oil are being moved per day, Axios, citing 2 U.S. officials. Some nights have hit 15 to 20 million barrels. This comes as President Trump and Scott Bessent confirmed pipelines are surging construction to bypass the strait. The Hormuz Strait's not gonna be quite as important in the past. The covert shipping strategy is beyond simply escorting outbound ships, Axios reports. The military is helping tankers enter the Gulf through the strait, pick up oil and leave fully. No nuke. No strait to hold hostage. J exposed. Your birth certificate is a financial bond, and you're the collateral. From the moment you were born, a system of control was placed over you. Your birth certificate is not just a document, it's a financial instrument, a bond worth billions, traded as collateral to fuel a corrupt financial system. You were never free. You were turned into a commodity, a human asset leveraged to sustain national debt. This is the greatest deception ever perpetrated, and they never wanted you to find out. Ever wonder why every government requires a birth certificate? It's not about identity, it's about ownership. Just like a ship arriving at port requires a manifest for its cargo, your birth certificate serves as proof that you were entered into their economic system as property. Your name in all capital letters. That's a corporate entity, your legal fiction. That red serial number. It's a stock exchange number, used to trade your value in global financial markets. You've been turned into a financial instrument, a resource exploited by the elite while you remain unaware. In 1933, the U.S. declared bankruptcy and pledged every citizen as collateral to back its debt. Gold was confiscated. Debt-based money was introduced. And you became an economic asset. Your birth certificate was converted into a bond and sold to international investors. The system calculates your worth, trades it, and profits from you, without you ever seeing a cent. This isn't conspiracy, it's documented financial fraud. Every government-issued certificate represents ownership. A stock certificate means shares in a company. A land certificate signifies property ownership. And a birth certificate, it signifies ownership of you. The elites don't see you as a free individual, they see you as an economic unit, taxed, tracked, and controlled to keep the system alive. The truth is undeniable. The system thrives on your ignorance. It has turned every individual into a financial instrument, ensuring you remain blind to your own enslavement. But now, you know. And knowledge is power. You can either continue living as a commodity, unknowingly feeding their machine, or you can take back control. The choice is yours.
We're still in a slow motion crisis, watching the U.S. head for an inevitable collapse. What I've noticed when I check the news is that the U.S. official deficit has now reached that magic number of $40 trillion. The U.S. is now spending $1.7 trillion on interest payments since October, compared to $800 billion on defense. This is unsustainable, and people in the financial industry who really know what's going on know that the United States is bankrupt. A good example was Japan sold $67 billion worth of U.S. treasuries in May, and Now suddenly the U.S. Treasury Department announced they're bailing out Japan. What that really means is that if Japan dumps their U.S. treasuries, there's no one there to buy them. So the Americans basically said, we'll buy them from you. We'll give you these dollars. Please do that. And they also threatened Japan in order to keep things going. But these sort of manipulations don't mask the underlying reality. The International Energy Association has just said that the world, which actually means the United States, has a 1.8 billion barrel per day, maybe a million barrel per day shortage of oil, which means, as we keep saying, we expect some sort of major crisis to come in the autumn. The other thing is the U.S. Treasury 30-year auction, the worst results since 2007, immediately before the Lehman crisis. So, everything is still pointing towards a big black swan event in the autumn, but again, it's not going to happen yet over the summer, but there are many other signs that the Khazarian mafia is, really on the brink. For example, the Yemeni people are increasing their war against Saudi Arabia. They make it very clear that Saudi Arabia started punishing them and attacking them after they attacked Israel for murdering Palestinians in Gaza. So when Saudi Arabia announced that they created this whole new military alliance with Pakistan and Turkey, that's nonsense. There's no way actual Muslims from Turkey or Pakistan are going to fight for the crypto-Jewish Saudi royals working for, the Khazarian mafia, and it's just not going to happen. And the Saudis have lost air power, and now the ground forces are just hired mercenaries who won't fight. So again, that's something I've been watching. I noticed that the House of Saud, the news site, has been shut down. I suspect that was pressure from the CIA because they're telling too much truth. Now, the other thing we're seeing is we're seeing more reports of mutiny in the U.S. Navy, supposedly blockading Iran. But again, this is not a blockade of Iran. It's a blockade of the United States and Israel, and the whole world knows it. The price of oil is cheap. The price of gasoline is cheap everywhere except the United States and Israel. So, the whole thing is going to continue, and there are more and more prominent people calling for war crimes tribunals. So, the U.S. Congress has indicted Anthony Fauci for contempt of Congress. So, even though he was supposedly given immunity for no matter what he did since 2014, he still refused to talk about what he did. And so that's what they're getting him with. But, he really should be facing a Nuremberg-type tribunal. And I'm not the only person to say this. I want you to listen to the first 1 minute and 20 seconds of this clip of Rainer Fulmick, the German lawyer who started the, and later you can listen to the whole interview if you have the time. But the point is, this is a very prominent lawyer with an international following. He's now a prisoner of war, but he speaks for many people. So listen to him. What this shows is that a critical mass of aware people in positions of power know that something's going to give, and we just don't know when it's going to give. But another thing that's obviously happening is the United States military is falling apart. They've run out of missiles, and they've lost a lot of airplanes. And this is the thing they're not talking about. They cannot build new ones. They don't have the rare earth metals they need to build them. So they're using up the last of the weapons. They have used them up. And that's why they're saying, well, now we're going to try some sort of financial tricks to take down Iran, but that's just nonsense. I mean, I've been talking to the Iranians. They communicate with me, and they make it clear they're not going to negotiate with Trump or the people behind him. They're going to wait for Israel to collapse and be replaced by the nation state of Judea. And now the Yemeni troops are also marching. So that's all going to be simmering away over the summer, but I don't expect anything decisive until the autumn, possibly beyond that. But definitely there's going to be a huge push in September to finally do something about these people. And another person who's now come out again is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is talking about all these satellites and this 5G and this attempt to create a digital prison. So he's come out openly now against this giant AI push, which is a form of mind control. And anyway, like I expected, the news cycle is stuck in a kind of a slow motion circling of the drain where we're waiting for the U.S. to inevitably collapse. But while resting here in Canada, I spent some time with two Jewish childhood friends, and it was very interesting because they are fully what I call brainwashed or normies. Their information sources are the New York Times, CNN, the Globe and Mail. In other words, the mainstream propaganda. And talking to them reminded me of this joke. The joke goes like this. There's a man who thinks his wife might be having an affair. So he hires a detective. The detective comes back and reports, I have some bad news for you. I saw your wife meet a man on the street and they went into a hotel together. Yeah, it says, okay, but so they went into a hotel. You don't know what they did there. They're probably just having coffee. He says, no, I followed them into the hotel and I saw them enter a bedroom together. He says, well, did you see them inside the bedroom? I mean, how do you know they weren't just talking? And he says, well, I peeped through the keyhole and I saw them in the bed together. He said, well, were there blankets on top of them? He says, yeah. Well, then you don't know. You can't tell. This is kind of the thought patterns when you confront them with facts about or that Anthony Fauci is really not a nice person or anything else. They have their talking points that they've been given by their propaganda media. But even people like this realize that something is wrong. They sense it. So, for example, whoever is acting the role of Donald Trump right now is actually helping wake up people like that, because they're saying, well, how come the president can just enrich himself at public expense by abusing his office? I mean, that doesn't make sense, and they're slowly, even people like this who they don't follow the news, and they're worried about their own lives, but but even them, they understand that there's something dysfunctional and that the system cannot continue as is. The same thing is going with the stock market, where it's long since ceased to be a kind of a collective decision-making forum for deciding what the best investments are, and instead it's a money laundering machine for a tiny group of people who control the U.S. dollar printing machine. A glaring example, of course, is Elon Musk. Everyone was predicting that once the insiders started selling their shares in SpaceX, that the share price would collapse. But as soon as the first insiders started selling, the share price shot up 22%. And my understanding is that they used their magic dollar printing machine to burn the short sellers and harvest some real money with the fake money by manipulating markets. But such a thing is not sustainable, and it's not going to be allowed to continue. But again, the situation will keep festering away without any major moves, I don't think, until later. However, there was on August 12th, there was an announcement all over the news that there was going to be a solar eclipse and a Perseid meteor shower, very active, and a new moon, and all these things happening. And I heard from my own sources that they were planning some sort of major event, but it didn't happen. My Iranian sources say there was a plan to use Iranian mobile phones to suddenly emit. And if you don't know about this, look up Dr. Gavreau. He found, well, this is banned by international treaty, but apparently there was some plot to have a major cull of Iranian people using phones that was thwarted. And there was also yet another plan to blow up a U.S. aircraft carrier and try to blame it on Iran. All these things fell apart. So we're lucky that their ability to manipulate us with these events is no longer working. And we can expect change, but again, it's not going to happen yet. We're waiting for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to run out. The U.S. military is already run out of weapons. Now we're waiting for their client states in the Middle East to completely collapse. That's happening in real time with Saudi Arabia. And now we're seeing something similar in Libya. You may recall that Hillary Clinton had Libyan leader Muammar setting up a new African currency and only accepting payment for Libyan oil with gold. And since the Europeans didn't have the gold to pay for their oil, they went in and stole it. Well, now their puppet government there is under incredible strain. Their facilities are being destroyed. The central bank governor has quit. So this is another one of their client states that's falling apart in real time. And I know they also are trying to do all sorts of stuff with Japan, trying to get Japan to incite war with Russia or with China or whatever. We'll deal with that puppet state in Japan later. Again, we're just waiting for the big kahuna, the Soviet Union of the United States of corporate America, to collapse. And this process is frustrating, and I don't want to give a specific date because dates come and go, but there can be no doubt it's mathematically dysfunctional. They've lost their industry. They have a trade deficit they can't cover. They're running out of oil. Their industry's been hollowed out. They cannot make weapons. And the U.S. military is in revolt because they don't want to fight for Israel, and they don't want to fight for a satanic cult. And we repeat, there is a white hat alliance that's going to offer the United States military a pay raise and the latest weapons and all the industrial facilities they need. All they have to do is liberate the American people from control of this cult. And when that happens, everything else will follow. But even if the U.S. military fails to take action, what is going to happen then is their paychecks are going to bounce, and there's going to be anarchy in the United States. So again, you know, the offers out there for a complete forgiveness of all U.S. debt, and then the United States would be hired to help protect the planet, and they would be the good guys again. And we're waiting for them to answer us. The Dragon family is offering unlimited funding to help rebuild the United States. So again, this is all on the table, but unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have some kind of major systems collapse before the rebuilding of the United States can begin. In the meantime, I recommend anybody and everybody to make sure that whatever is closest to them is working. They have a plan in case the supermarkets run out of food. They have places in the countryside they can go to. They have a certain amount of cash stashed away and non-perishable food stashed away. My own view is that if people have enough dried food in their house, like beans and rice and spaghetti, to last a month, that'll get them through any crisis, because it's not going to last longer than that. But again, in the meantime, summer's going to continue, and I don't expect anything major, so try to relax and charge your batteries, and hopefully, finally, we can finish these bastards off later this year. But if not, we'll keep fighting until they are finished, and there can be no doubt they are losing, and they will lose. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today, and now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. Senator Tom Cotton's FY 2027 Intelligence Authorization Act, Section 622, would significantly expand U.S.-Israel intelligence and security integration. How likely is it to survive the legislative process and pass both chambers? And if it does, would Trump sign it given the weight of Zionist pressure?
My understanding is that there's a significant portion of the U.S. military and intelligence community who are ignoring everything Congress and the so-called office of President Trump is doing. And when you have, was it 98% of Congress and Senate accepting bribes from Israel, they do not represent the American people. And I don't think the intelligence community is sharing anything with them, and they're not going to obey their orders to do whatever Israel asks. It's just not going to happen. Not only that, Israeli intelligence is also in revolt against the Satanists who took over Israel. So no, I wouldn't worry about bills passed by whores. Next question.
Hi, Ben. A month ago, you wrote that the dollar has split into two camps, quote, the BRICS dollar held by non-Americans and the, quote, our dollar tied to the Rockefeller Empire. If the USA corporation collapses, what happens to the dollars Americans hold in their pocket, and what happens to the dollars in their bank accounts? How smooth is the transition, and will the two-tier split become obvious to everybody? And have the BRICS dollars actually been what stopped the USA corporation from collapsing already?
I think it's obvious to anybody when you find out the United States cannot buy many things from around the world anymore. And my understanding is that if everything is handled properly, there will be some kind of bank holiday, and the average people will not lose their money, but a lot of these trillionaires are going to have their money confiscated. But whatever happens, it'll be public. It'll be for the good of the average person, and it's not going to be some secret event. But the American people, on average, are not going to lose money, but a lot of trillionaires will, because that's fraudulent money. It's not based on the real world. And as far as the BRICS dollar is concerned, just look at statistics for euro dollars. That's what they sometimes call them. Or look at what happened since 2008. Basically, 2008, the Lehman shock was when the split came. And then the only reason the Americans were able to keep the system going after that was they agreed to install a black communist by the name of Barack Obama. In exchange for that, they got $23 trillion, which allowed them to keep going until Trump. They're freaking out, and they're trying to find some way to keep their whole show going. And I keep asking everybody, the Asians and everybody else. But anyway, getting back to it, it'll be some kind of very public thing. It won't be a secret decision, and it's not going to be some kind of reevaluation involving Zimbabwe dollars or stuff like that. It's going to be a public thing that everyone will know about. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Why can't the white hat military simply destroy the fake money printers that keep the Satanists going, and would doing so cause general economic chaos for the majority of Americans? If not, it seems like it should be an easy target.
Well, the problem is that this is something that cannot be decided by the Americans alone. They have to get an agreement with the people who hold all the U.S. debt. and that means mostly China and Japan and some of the Middle Eastern countries. And these countries are saying, we'll write off your debt. All we're asking for you in exchange is to get rid of these Zionist, satanic criminals who hijacked your government. And as soon as that happens, everything will be fine. But unfortunately, the U.S. military cannot act alone. They have to reach a deal with the rest of the world because it's the rest of the world who owns their debt and pays their salaries at present. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Would you comment on the Q website counting down to October 1st? In the UK, it feels like they are preparing for something, internal war games next year that look like insurrection preparation, and Argentina appears to be moving on the Falklands area again.
I don't give much credence anymore to the Q business, but the fact that they're telegraphing this, it means that they know that something big is coming down in the autumn, and I think they're trying to set up some sort of counteroffensive. So my understanding is they're going to try to impose some sort of martial law in the UK to prevent the removal of the fake King Charles and the removal of the criminal government there. And so there's going to be some kind of an attempt to set up a fascist regime, and it will fail, I guarantee you. But yeah, I expect all sorts of moves and counter moves once things heat up in the autumn. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. How does your White Dragon Society solution provide justice for humanity? If there is forgiveness that could excuse criminals from accountability, shouldn't all high criminals be held accountable with punishment fitting the crimes they've committed? Millions of arrests, and for the unforgivable crimes, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of executions. In your opinion, what does true justice actually look like?
I think there's a consensus growing that we're going to need some kind of Nuremberg 2.0 war crimes tribunals, and that a lot of people will be executed. But again, we have to distinguish between, for example, so that's why we do need public trials, and I expect that there will be a lot of people getting the death penalty. The problem is we're dealing with a cult that people are born into, and they have no choice but to go along and be killed. And now I'm hearing there may be as many as 4 million Satanists around the world, not 1 million as was originally told by Japanese military intelligence. Because they were born into a cult, or do you re-educate them and just deal with the leadership? That's the thing that humanity has to decide. Personally, I think that the important thing is to make sure that it ceases to exist forever, and that's more important than getting revenge, and that means taking their children away, re-educating them, and putting them under complete supervision to make sure such a thing never happens again. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week, and hope to see you next week, and slowly we're going to be headed for the big autumn move. So, again, try to charge your batteries. That's what I'm trying to do. And
Judy note, this week Iran has been advertising a bounty of $30,000 to kill American service members, plus Iran released proof that Jeffrey Epstein was alive, in Israel, and blackmailing FBI Director Kash Patel. If that wasn't bad enough news for the week, it has been revealed that since its existence in the early 1800s and for the sake of profit, our own big pharma and medical industry have been trying to keep our bodies sick, rather than giving them the nutrition needed to heal. The next day on Saturday 8th of August, 2026 at 1447 EST and simultaneously at 47 federal facilities, the military arrested 847 deep state architects who had coordinated with 23 foreign intelligence agencies to sell American secrets. The military also seized classified documents, financial records and communication logs that had been hidden for 70 years. They showed coordination between deep state operatives and the Chinese Communist Party and proved treason and financial crimes totaling $847 billion. The military has now seized that $847 billion in frozen assets from deep state operatives' offshore accounts, money laundering networks and black budget slush funds. Both Epstein and Bill Gates were deeply involved in mass-producing human clones for the purpose of taking complete control over the planet. DNA was collected from abducted children around the world. Mass-produced clones, raised by AI caregivers, implanted with biometric chips linked directly to Microsoft servers, all under the guise of quantum research and NSA channels. The plan was for a digital ID for the life of a post-human slave race. By Saturday, 8th of August, 2026, President Trump had had enough of the deep state shenanigans. As Commander-in-Chief of the Worldwide Military Alliance, Trump activated his wartime powers, deployed the U.S. military and a coalition of 300,000 troops worldwide to make mass arrests of pedophiles and treasonous global elites, plus announced activation of the Nizar laws, which return taxpayer monies back to the people. The U.S. military had been stationed in 360 cities anticipating Supreme Court directives on emergency petitions which could dissolve compromised federal jurisdictions. The global military alliance was accelerating mass arrests and military tribunals targeting over 500,000 deep state cabal political and global elites. Phones will only work for 911 calls, but the military will make available a Signal app which will secure regular cell phone use through the new Starlink satellite system and quantum computer. Across the globe during those 10 days and in preparation for migration into the new quantum financial system, banks would be closed, while ATMs and credit and debit cards would not work. Soon every phone on the planet would be hit with a loud, unmistakable alert signal from Starlink satellites, bypassing the corrupt media channels controlled by the elites. On cell phones worldwide, 7 trumpets will sound, alerting us to the declaration of global martial law. EBS text messages will be introduced and we will be urged to tune into our TV, radio and/or internet. The EBS alert will be activated globally but in phases. Depending on your location, you might get it slightly earlier or later. A temporary global lockdown window will secure the broadcast phase. You will have 5 hours to get to a place of your choice where you will stay for 10 days. The signal will be followed by a broadcast from Trump and military leaders. They will deliver real-time updates on the takedown of the deep state, mass arrests, and the collapse of the corrupt financial system. You'll learn how FEMA, the FBI, and other agencies have been weaponized against the people, staging false flags and disasters to maintain control. The EBS broadcast could last up to 10 days, depending on ground conditions. During this time, there will be no internet, no social media, no TV, no mainstream news, only pure truth broadcasts as to what actually was going on. After the EBS would be a whole new world. They call it the Golden Dome. Iran released proof Jeffrey Epstein is alive in Israel and blackmailing Kash Patel. Iran shocked the world by hacking FBI Director Kash Patel's personal emails. But here's what the corporate media won't touch: Iran didn't hack Patel. They hacked Israel. And it gets darker. The Handala hack team says this is only the beginning. They've got more. Much, much more. See possible timing. President Trump has given the green light. He has activated the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, mobilized 300,000 troops, ordered the global military alliance to take over the mainstream fake news media and make mass arrests. 19th of August, 2026. The EBS was set to trigger a 3-day event, followed by 10 days of communication darkness. Pedophile networks tied to suppressed healing tech face mass arrests under martial law. Wednesday, 19th of August, 2026. No official time frame has been given where we will begin isolating at home for 3 to 6 weeks after the global military alliance suspended the media, internet, phones and took over TV and radio to present 8-hour documentaries 24/7 about what was going on while the military took down the Illuminati deep state cabal-controlled governments worldwide and made mass arrests of corrupt global elites. White hats on Telegram twos. August 18, 2026. No official time frame has been given. Trump's CBS activation where we will isolate at home for 3 to 6 weeks as global martial law suspended the media, internet, phones and took over TV and radio to present 8-hour documentaries 24/7 about what was going on while the military took down the Illuminati deep state cabal-controlled governments worldwide and made mass arrests of corrupt global elites. August 18, 2026. On Monday, August 24, 2026, ISO 20022 completes across all banking systems as QFS worldwide. Redemption centers open appointments for first week of September while the last cabal remnants face public military tribunals. This video is reposted from the blog, erdailyblog.com. EBS timing, EBS deep briefing. Read carefully. For decades you were told emergency alerts were just storm sirens. They were more. The Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, is the override key, the signal that cuts through every network. When rehearsal becomes execution, screens freeze, then truth speaks. What EBS really is, a sovereign override, not a TV feature. It bypasses cable, satellite, radio, cellular at once, a layered protocol, EASE, civilian, plus national override, federal, plus military net, harden, star-linked redundancy. Odin routing pushes the same packet through multiple orbital paths. The silent tests, trumpet codes, tones inside routine alerts. Timing equals key exchange, red channels, restricted bands measuring latency drift, quantum sync, alerts arriving inside a 0.00x window equals clock broadcast. Timeline windows, Sept 15 to 17, 2026, soft blackout drills, 11 to 17 minutes overrides. Watch switchovers between terrestrial and orbital, Sept 22, 2026, full dress rehearsal. Stress tests on rural towers, relays, legacy boxes. Non-standard tones equals you saw it. Sept 28 to 30, 2026, final quiet phase. Keys locked, routes hardened. Expect odd maintenance notices, October 1, 2026, initial disclosure packets. 12-minute segments seeded as public service. Familiar names speaking carefully, November 11, 2026, the great reveal. 11/11 is a sync ritual. Expect tribunal feeds, archives, timelines. What you'll see, 3 tones freeze forced caption, stream pins on top, no switching apps, crawls replace tickers. Logos vanish, segment, context evidence directive. How to prepare, charge devices. Save this channel. Hard copy contacts, headphones ready, some tones hidden, ignore breaking news links. They're traps. Rumor control, rumor, EBS equals martial law everywhere. Reality, targeted ops protect civilians, rumor, if I miss it, it's gone. Reality, replays roll in waves. Why they fear it. EBS resets the format. It kills monopoly of narration. Neutral screen equals lethal truth. QFS tie-in, financial packets run separate but timelines rhyme, QFS syncs often bookend EBS rehearsals. Disclosure plus settlement equals 1-op, banking maintenance after alerts equals ledger fences rising. Strange signals, airband chatter spikes while TV comm, ISP maintenance at odd hours in many cities, legacy radios suddenly clean, no hiss. Remember, narratives are software. EBS equals factory reset, anchors go quiet when prompter dies, you were never powerless. Just throttled. Your role 1. Stay calm. Document. 2. Note time, length, tone. 3. Share only first-hand details. 4. Don't flood with theories, signal beats noise. Symbol keys, trumpets equals tone handshakes, whales equals archives surfacing, keys equals decryption milestones, blackout equals media silence, not collapse. Bottom line, EBS isn't to scare you. It frees the line. When tones arrive, remember who you are, what you've seen, and why they fought so hard to keep you asleep. Turn on notifications. Forward this to 3 people. WHO think it's just TV. Stay inside this channel until the last packet drops. Global currency reset. At exactly 8:14 p.m. Eastern August 20, 2026, the old SWIFT Central Clearinghouse experienced a permanent database decoupling. The secondary handshake between the central banks of the G7 nations officially returned a terminal failure message. Thursday, August 20, 2026 Paymasters report full release. Direct confirmations have been sent to private transaction platforms in Reno and Zurich confirming that Tier 1 and Tier 2 payouts had been finalized. Tier 3 and Tier 4A, be next. If you're in the private groups, get ready now. Military movements confirmed to secure transition. Sources in Intel report increased security around major financial centers. Private security details have been deployed to Reno, Zurich, and Dubai. Special ops teams were making sure no foreign interference upsets this historic shift in global power, QFS activated on Telegram Thursday, August 20, 2026. On Monday, August 24, 2026, the ISO 20022 messaging, that defines how banks transmit payment information, completes its transition across all major banking rails. For the first time in history, SWIFT, Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, Bank of England, BRICS, IMF and all high-value cross-border payment systems will speak the same transaction language. August 18, 2026. The first week in September 2026, redemption centers will start processing live appointments in accordance with full JAZAR protocol. The schedule is already being filled with authorized, Tier 4B, participants, according to sources within 2 U.S. agencies, NISR and JAZAR connected on Telegram. Thursday, 20 August 2026. Bruce, the big call, a higher-up said they were handling bonds in Miami, Geneva and Reno. The military was now giving out the intel. A military intel person said that as of 6 p.m. EST on Wednesday 19/20/26 there was a 5-day window where Tier 4B would receive notification to set exchange/redemption appointments and be able to start appointments. That would take it to Monday, August 24, 2026. Redemption Center leaders received an email on Thursday, August 20, 2026 that they should go into work on Friday, August 21, 2026 at 8:45 a.m. $50 billion of U.S. Treasury bonds have been bought back from Venezuela to make their currency stronger. What we think we know. As of Friday, August 21, 2026, California Democrat mayor just quit after admitting she was a Chinese communist agent. Eileen Wang, mayor of Arcadia, stepped down after striking a plea deal and admitting she acted as an illegal foreign agent for the Chinese government, spreading Beijing's propaganda in the U.S. under their direction. She faces up to 10 years in federal prison. Their agents orchestrated market crashes, currency wars, and global resets in 2024 and 2025 to buy assets for pennies, and pushed bioweapon releases and rigged elections to depopulate and enslave populations under digital control grids. They are behind every major crisis, from trumped-up health emergencies to endless foreign wars. Central banks in recalcitrant nations are in their hands, and by 2026 only a handful remain free. The cabal is protected by media puppets and hate speech laws that silence the truth. But the Great Awakening rises as Qanons connect the dots to the synagogue of Satan laid out in Revelation. The tide turns hard in 2026 when Donald Trump and the White Hat stake down the deep state from the inside. Mass arrests of bloodline operatives, central banks fail, and NWO One World government plans implode in panic. Patriots across the world are rising up against this satanic enterprise, unmasking the media complicity and the elite rituals. The Rothschild Empire, founded on centuries of tyranny, crumbles as mankind reclaims sovereignty. The tribunals are coming in 2027, bringing justice and a golden age free of their grip. The darkness is exposed in the light and freedom wins. The criminal syndicate of the House of Rothschild has met its final judgment, and the Rothschild stranglehold over uranium, nuclear power and global finance is forever broken. Be careful, patriots, the storm is here and victory is certain. Share this. Exclusive, U.S. national debt explodes past $40 trillion, faster than anyone predicted. In a stunning fiscal milestone that has sent shockwaves through Washington, the U.S. national debt officially crossed the $40 trillion threshold this week, reaching $40.047 trillion according to the latest Treasury Department figures. The jump from $39 trillion took less than 5 months, an acceleration driven by soaring interest payments, war-related spending, and revenue shortfalls after courts invalidated key tariffs. Economists warn this is no longer abstract accounting. Interest costs alone now consume a massive share of the federal budget, crowding out other priorities and raising the risk of a doom loop where higher debt forces higher rates, which force even more borrowing. Maya McGuinness of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget called it unsustainable, noting the debt has roughly doubled in a decade. Lawmakers remain gridlocked on solutions ahead of the midterms, with both parties pointing fingers while the bond market shows volatility. For ordinary Americans, this translates into pressure on mortgages, credit, and the long-term strength of the dollar. Exclusive sources inside Treasury say internal briefings have grown increasingly urgent, with some officials privately describing the trajectory as alarming. The $40 trillion mark is more than just a number. The internet we know and use that came out in 1993 was built as a prison, giving the public an illusion of endless information, but information that was filtered and designed to keep us uninformed of what was really going on. 16 years prior in 1977 ARPA-7 had come out as an internet that was only available to certain major intelligence agencies, central banks, NATO military command structures and 147 private individuals. ARPA-7 was a ledger of real wealth distribution, medical research never published, classified energy technology patents and complete unedited historical records, and all documented by those who planned them. Those deep state criminals who planned and carried out those pandemics, wars, assassinations and other crimes against humanity were about to meet their maker. President Trump has given the green light. He has activated the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, mobilized 300,000 troops, ordered the global military alliance to take over the mainstream fake news media and make mass arrests. Mr. Poole on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026, the EBS was set to trigger a 3-day event, followed by 10 days of communication darkness, face mass arrests under martial law. Martial law on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026. No official time frame has been given where we will begin isolating at home for 3 to 6 weeks after the global military alliance suspended the media, internet, phones and took over TV and radio to present 8-hour documentaries 24/7 about what was going on while the military took down the Illuminati deep state cabal-controlled governments worldwide and made mass arrests of corrupt global elites, white hats on Telegram 2s. August 18, 2026. A. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. The FDA has admitted that they have no idea what's being used in our food. They are talking about the 10,000+ chemicals allowed into our foods for the last 40 years that have been introduced to the public without safety studies being done by the FDA. The foods were self-approved by Big Food, Donald Trump office on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026. RFK Jr. has ignited a nationwide firestorm after accusing alleged CIA and DARPA-linked operations of atmospheric chemical spraying, Mr. Kid Poole on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026. President Trump has announced that there were no Iran negotiations going on and that the Strait of Hormuz was open. He's refusing to back down. There are no talks or conversations going on, or scheduled, with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The naval blockade remains in full force and effect. The Hormuz Strait is open and operating. All water mines have been removed or detonated, Wednesday 19th of August. 2026. Never gotten over the fact that Obama was able to send $1.7 billion in cash to Iran and nobody in Congress, the FBI or justice called for an investigation. Wednesday 19th of August. 2026. Wednesday 19th of August. 2026, bombshell announcement, Nick Shirley announces Clinton body bags investigation, Seth Rich and Vince Foster come first, Wednesday 19th of August. 2026, warning, Clinton body bags, this isn't just a theory, it's a hit list, 51 dead associates and America's most explosive political death list. See possible timing. No official time frame has been given Trump CBS activation where we will isolate at home for 3 to 6 weeks as global martial law suspended the media, internet, phones and took over TV and radio to present 8-hour documentaries 24/7 about what was going on while the military took down the Illuminati deep state cabal-controlled governments worldwide and made mass arrests of corrupt global elites. D. On Wednesday 19th of August. 2026 107, JFK Jr., and top White Hat Military Alliance commanders confirmed Starlink EBS live streams of quantum medbed miracles have begun after crystal chambers activated across all 50 states and 209 nations yesterday, proving the cabal's 50-year global currency reset. 2s. August 18, 2026 Bruce, the Big Call, a redemption center leader, plus an intel provider, both said they were going to try to do Tier 4B exchanges by the end of this week. If not, Tier 4B notification to set exchange appointments will happen over the weekend. On Monday, August 24, 2026 the ISO 20022 messaging, that defines how banks transmit payment information, completes its transition across all major banking rails. For the first time in history SWIFT, Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, Bank of England, BRICS, IMF and all high-value cross-border payment systems will speak the same transaction language. August 18, 2026. The first week in September 2026, redemption centers will start processing live appointments in accordance with full JSR protocol. The schedule is already being filled with authorized, Tier 4B, participants, according to sources within 2 U.S. agencies. Thursday, August 20, 2026 at exactly 8:14 EST, the old SWIFT Central Clearinghouse permanently decouples their database. The decoupling is complete. The quantum liquidity bridge is open. They thought they could delay the final transmission. They ran out of time. 19th of August, 2026. At exactly 8:14 p.m. Eastern, August 20, 2026, the old SWIFT Central Clearinghouse would experience a permanent database decoupling. The secondary handshake between the central banks of the G7 nations officially returned a terminal failure message. The corporate financial networks are preparing a massive media smokescreen for Sunday night, blaming an unprecedented synchronized cloud architecture outage. They are suffocating in their own panic. The servers didn't fail. They were decommissioned. The Quantum Financial System, QFS, has just assumed 100% control of the global ledger. Here is what the legacy banking cartel is desperately trying to censor before you wake up tomorrow morning. Warning emoji, the Tier 4B activation. The secure satellite uplink to the non-custodial Tier 4B validation terminals has transitioned from testing to live execution. The asset-backed sovereign funds, backed by the physical gold re-anchored to the U.S. Treasury, are now officially mapped to the local routing networks. Warning emoji, the quantum handshake. Over 12,000 regional and local credit unions have successfully integrated the ISO 20022 protocol over the last 4 hours. The corrupt Tier 1 mega banks that refuse to comply with the asset-backed standards have had their settlement privileges permanently revoked by the military alliance. Warning emoji, the Nezero liquidations, the hidden offshore pools used by the globalist corporations to short the markets and suppress humanity have been completely drained. Those funds have been legally redirected into the primary redemption accounts. The distribution protocols are locked. They told you the old system was too big to fail. They wanted you to believe you were trapped in their endless debt loop forever. Look at the sudden, forced updates on your personal banking apps tonight. Look at the emergency internal memos leaked from the administrative floors of Wall Street. The old world didn't just crash. The keys to the entire global wealth ledger were handed back to the people. The ghost currency is evaporating. The real asset-backed era is officially online. You held the line through the darkest hours of the deception. Now, watch the monitors as the old machine loses its power forever. QFS integration live, ISO 20022 sovereign, the reconciliation begins, the countdown has hit 0. The new dawn is already here. G-bond funds are now moving so fast through paymaster channels that even insiders are stunned by the volume. What was delayed for months is now arriving in waves. This is why private appointments are being scheduled quietly and continuously. This phase is not about waiting anymore. It's about readiness. 19th of August, 2026. A few things are now absolutely clear. There will be no straight cash payouts. You will be in full control of your funds. Multiple accounts and structures can be created immediately. Certified advisors will be present to assist with asset management, project selection, and long-term planning. This is structured wealth, not a handout. Prepare your plans and projects now. Those who arrive without direction will be guided, but those who arrive prepared will move faster. Project funding pathways are already mapped inside the system. Security remains tight. Yes, there are still forces that do not want this transition to complete, but all channels confirm the process is protected and stable. You are allowed to bring support to your appointment, financial advisors, bank contacts you have already spoken with, friends or trusted individuals. Anyone you choose to assist you is permitted. ZimCap information continues to adjust daily, but as of now the structure is as follows: no project 15 million payout regardless of the amount held, with approved projects first 2 bond notes at 1-to-1. After that, 25 million per 100 T, up to a maximum of 30 bond notes. Further negotiation requires a return appointment. Confirmed intel, the Tier 4B protocol is now in use. What was once laughed at as rumor and fantasy is now being carried out in a controlled way. JFK Jr. Command Center on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August, 2026, Iraq and Zimbabwe are quietly leading a change in the economy that is happening outside of public markets. This change is happening because of structure, security, and silence. It is no longer just a guess that the IQD and Zim will be worth more. It is a fact of life. For years, People who owned these currencies were made fun of, but institutions quietly got ready behind closed doors. Now, what started as rumors have become real: bank appointments, tiered access structures, and private exchange processes that run through U.S. banking channels. The global currency reset is now in the execution phase, and Tier 4B is where the public finally comes into contact with it. This is not a public Forex event. It is a controlled, secret restructuring that follows a strict tiered framework. Tier 1 includes central banks and governments that are independent. Tier 2 includes multinational companies and top-tier financial trusts. Tier 3 includes wealthy people and businesses that have already agreed on contracts. Tier 4B is where private citizens who have legally gotten their money are turned on. This is the door for those who waited and stayed quiet, and Tier 4B is now open. The biggest banks in the US have already moved. In a quiet way. Only by appointment. Private exchange centers are up and running, using better security, identity checks, proof of purchase checks, NDAs, and wealth structuring after the exchange. This isn't a theory, and it's not for the public. It is controlled execution in the dark. There is one simple rule for Tier 4B, no walk-ins, no leaks, and no show. People who want to join are checked out. There are limits on devices. There are records of consultations. You must use discretion. This is not a public rollout, it is a monitored operation meant to keep the market from being shocked and the system from being disrupted. The exchange rates for IQD is already showing up in internal banking systems at levels that the public can't see. Public Forex platforms are behind because they are not on this track. Tier 4B works on its own and is already moving money. This reset starts with Iraq. The sanctions that kept the dinar down for decades are no longer in place. Digital banking systems that follow international standards are up and running. The UN and US oversight has officially ended, giving back full sovereignty. Internal anti-corruption operations have gotten back stolen property and turned it into revaluation leverage. Iraq is no longer limited. It is turned on. Zimbabwe are next, with resource-backed frameworks already in place. Gold-backed structures and project-based valuation models are coming together for a phased integration that will last until 2025 and into 2026. The rollout is planned. The first round of internal testing is over. First, high-volume holders are given priority, then mid-tier participants, and finally, more people will be able to access the service in the coming weeks. Every step needs identification, proof, compliance with the NDA, and complete secrecy. This isn't a lot of talk. It is the end of a long-planned restructuring of the money system. The reset didn't come with a lot of noise. It got there on time. Tier 4B is up and running. The quietness is on purpose. The system is moving. The reset, the great unveiling has begun. U.S. Treasury Center on Telegram, Wednesday 19th of August, 2026. For generations, the human race has walked through a carefully constructed labyrinth. A maze built not with bricks and stone, but with deception, control, and silence. The rulers of the old order knew that your spirit with fear, and your mind with illusions, then they could harvest your energy and enslave your future. But nothing hidden stays hidden forever. The veil is tearing, the cage is fracturing, and the sound you hear in the distance is the collapse of their empire. The quantum financial system, QFS, is not a dream, it is the end of economic tyranny. For centuries, every coin, every dollar, every piece of currency you touched was poisoned by interest, debt, and manipulation. Your energy was extracted, your labor stolen, your freedom sold. QFS is the antidote. It exists beyond their reach, guarded by quantum encryption and celestial oversight. Every transaction becomes a pulse of sovereignty, incorruptible, instant, and pure. With QFS, humanity learns what money was always meant to be, a tool of exchange, not a weapon of enslavement. Pay attention, the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, is the bridge that connects the world we know to the world that waits. When the screens go dark and the silence falls, it will not be chaos, it will be correction. The truth will pour in like a flood, washing away the lies, exposing the shadows, and illuminating the path ahead. The elites called it conspiracy. The media called it fantasy. But in their hearts, they feared it, because they knew it was inevitable. And you, yes, you reading this, are not a spectator. You are part of the generation chosen to witness the transition. Out of billions, you incarnated now, in this exact hour of history, when prophecy merges with reality. Wednesday 19th of August, 2026, breaking special report, blown up, The USS Lincoln Iran war narrative backfires, inside the psychological battle targeting America's military resilience, Wednesday 19th of August. 2026, breaking alert, Trump scores massive court victory, DPS dominoes fall as deportation crackdown clears the way to send thousands back home. And red alert, RFK Jr. declares war on CIA/DARPA chemtrail operations, declassified military documents reignite nationwide firestorm, 19th of August. 2026, RFK Jr. has ignited a nationwide firestorm after accusing alleged CIA and DARPA-linked operations of atmospheric chemical spraying. Resurfaced military documents and chemtrail claims trigger political and public backlash. At the center are allegations that military-tied agencies, specifically DARPA, conduct atmospheric chemical dispersal via commercial or modified aircraft as part of hidden government climate manipulation. The controversy grew after a podcast during Kennedy's presidential campaign where he platformed claims that the U.S. military secretly runs climate-related operations with chemical dispersal from aircraft. He stated military programs to weaponize climate exist because they do it with everything else. The most explosive moment came after his confirmation as health secretary. On the Dr. Phil show, asked about chemtrails, Kennedy stated it is done, we think, by DARPA. He alleged chemicals are introduced through jet fuel systems, with much now coming out of the jet fuel, and pledged to stop it. A rediscovered declassified CIA document circulating in 2026 intensified the debate, reigniting focus on atmospheric modification, weather experimentation, and military-linked programs. Once dismissed as fringe talk, the issue now reaches federal discourse, state legislation, and media coverage. With the sitting health secretary's statements, multi-state bills, and resurfaced documents, the conversation on atmospheric operations and government transparency continues expanding. Layer 1 is the internet you use: Google, social media, news sites. Layer 1, the public layer. The layer they gave you in '93 and told you was everything. And that's not all. This is the lobby. A contractor for the NSA, now in military custody at an unknown location, provided documentation of a parallel network called ARPA-7. Not ARPANET. No, not the ancestor of the Internet. A separate system, launched in 1977, never connected to the public grid. ARPA-7 has a completely different protocol stack. Different address. Routing is different. Different encryption methods. It is not accessible from any commercial device. No browser can access it. It is not indexed by any search engine. It is not tunneled into by any VPN. It needs hardware that isn't sold. Other non-commercially produced terminals. Access codes based on a quantum random algorithm that changes every 11 minutes. Who uses it? 4,200 active terminals are listed in the documentation worldwide. Located in each of the major intelligence agencies, each of the central banks, each of the military command structures in NATO, and, here's where it gets dark, 147 private homes. The public internet was not built to inform you. It was for you to contain. Give you the illusion of endless information while you stay in a sandbox. Every search. Filtered result. All algorithms calibrated. Every fact check designed to keep you in the lobby, forever. The actual conversations. The real choices. The real story. All of it on a network you were never supposed to know about. The NSA contractor copied 7 terabytes before he pulled it. The files are now distributed throughout the QFS evidentiary network. Unchangeable. Forever. Identified the 147 private terminals. Their whereabouts were logged. Known to their owners. Now the military tribunal has all the messages that were ever sent on ARPA-7 in the last 48 years. They built a private internet to plot the enslavement of the world. When you have quantum decryption, they forgot, every network, however secret, leaves a trace. The second internet just turned into the largest crime scene in human history. They gave you the lobby and told you it was the building. The building just got busted. The internet you know is a prison. The FDA has admitted that they had no idea what's being used in our food. The FDA admits they have no idea about 10,000 plus chemicals allowed into our foods introduced with no safety studies because they were self-approved by Big Food. Donald Trump office on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026. The real issue here is that the FDA commissioner, as we sit here today, does not know what's in our food. Most Americans, most moms would assume that the ingredients in our food have been subjected to safety studies. That is not true. For the past 40 years, The food industry's taken advantage of a loophole where they can generally recognize a food as safe raw. And 95% of food ingredients now in our food supply have been self-identified as safe with no safety studies. Once you designate that loophole, you do not have to submit the ingredient or safety studies to the FDA, and that loophole use has led to the FDA not knowing what's in our food. It could be 2,000 ingredients, it could be 10,000. We don't know. There is no safety study on food. The War Department is ordering 30 domestic academic institutions to audit their research and financial ties with foreign entities or risk losing further funding. The list includes several prestigious schools such as Harvard, Duke, Johns Hopkins, and MIT. The institutions have until the end of the month to report conclusions and next steps. In 2025 alone, American universities reported over $5.2 billion in foreign gifts and contracts. The top 5: Carnegie Mellon $1 billion, MIT $1 billion, Stanford $775 million, Harvard $324 million. Total foreign funding: Harvard has taken over $4.2 billion in foreign funding combined, Carnegie Mellon University $3.9 billion, MIT $3.5 billion, Cornell University $3.1 billion, University of Pennsylvania $2.8 billion. Our universities are brainwashing our youth into hating America, and this is why. Foreign influence. In the 1920s, Justin Christoflo, a French baker, discovers that the Earth and the atmosphere form a natural electric battery. JFK Jr. Command Center on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026, he plants copper antennas, iron wires, and magnets in his garden. And there, the miracle occurs: potatoes weighing 1 kilogram, carrots weighing 2 kilograms, leeks as thick as arms, 0 chemical fertilizers. Yields ×3. Harvests 3 weeks earlier. Germany offers him 10 million francs for his patent. He refuses out of patriotism. Result: his machines are destroyed, his publications banned, and the word electroculture is erased from French dictionaries. Today, thousands of gardeners are doing it again in secret. Iran is the deep state, cabal's proxy. 19th of August. 2026, the central bankers equals the City of London's control could only go so far, as there had to be a plan B. They also knew President Donald Trump was going to eventually dismantle their financial arm and build up our military stronger. They knew there would come a day when those military generals that they couldn't buy, the White Hat Alliance, said no more, and their own militarily/weapons plan would be needed for their final attack on us. With the US being the military arm, how would they accomplish this? Hence their proxy, Iran, which is why no other president in history ever took it down, and those that tried were eliminated. Enter Obama, their puppet, and many others that helped to get the American people to turn against their own country with Soros, NGOs, the fake programs for the needy, USAID, and fake wars. All money laundering schemes to systematically siphon our resources and tax money to help fund the demise of America, the leader of the free world, all while weakening our only defense, our military and the people. The only things that stood in their way of full world dominance, where freedom of the people was a distant memory, was we the people, under every blade of grass, and our military. Why? How to prepare for a blackout in the USA, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy on Telegram Wednesday 19th of August. 2026, 1. Have a reserve of emergency cash, 2. Keep food and water stocked, 3. Hide your stockpile safely, 4. Secure your house with alarms and traps, 5. Always have a safe haven where you can go in case of emergency, 6. Stay out of big cities, 7. Never tell anybody about your plans outside your tiny group. There are numerous other essential supplies that you should store in addition to just food and water. These include, but are not limited to, ammunition, gasoline, clothing, first aid supplies, toilet paper, propane, items for personal hygiene, plastic bags, prescription meds, pet food, batteries, gas. Mossad dispatched agents to examine the phenomenon, but they vanished. The IRGC stationed 500 troops with machine guns and anti-aircraft weapons at the cave, a presence that continues more than 4 decades later. Information stems from U.S. intelligence officials speaking on deep background. In February of this year, CIA Director John Ratcliffe was told by Mossad Director Roman Goffman that Iran's Ministry of Science was close to lowering the force field and reaching the red ice. For decades, officials have cited Iran's nuclear program as the threat. New details suggest this serves as cover for the true goal of securing advanced technology. In early April, U.S. forces rescued a downed F-15 crew after intense operations. The pilot was recovered quickly while the weapons officer required an overnight special operations mission. At the same time, special forces and Kurdish guides raided a nearby IRGC site to seize research data on orders to recover it by any means. The guide proved to be an IRGC mole and called for help. Special forces killed him at once. Heavy fighting followed, in which 2 American soldiers died. 4 Iranian scientists were found executed at close range to prevent capture, and laptop screens had been shot to ruin the data. A helicopter evacuated the unit before more IRGC arrived. The recovered data value is unknown, as is the red ice origin. If this war masks a tech seizure, the United States has spent over $200 million on what may be history's biggest conspiracy.
After 9/11, where videos would appear and would be taken down, and it was a desperate attempt by the people running the fake Trump show and the fake U.S. government show to deny the fact that the United States is experiencing its biggest military defeat in its entire history. They are being systematically kicked out of the Middle East. First of all, before we start, I think you need to listen directly to the Iranian foreign minister in this clip here, because he's making it clear that they're not going to talk to the current regime. And I've been told by the Iranians they're now going after BlackRock. They're going after the owners of the mega corporations like Oracle and Meta and Google and all that. They've identified the enemy. And I've heard something similar from the Chinese. So they're going after the owners of the mega corporations. And it's not going to end until this is over. All right, now listen to the Iranian foreign minister. Okay, so why is he so confident? Well, let's run by some news that you probably haven't seen because it's been scrubbed from the English internet. And I get sent videos, and I look at them, and then like half an hour later, they've been wiped off all my devices, and I can't find them on the internet. But I remember seeing them. So one is that the bunker that sheltered the entire Israeli elite and their families, that's all the government ministers and their families, was destroyed. They were all killed. Okay, so that's something you're not seeing, but they're all gone. The other thing that I'm not seeing in English news, but I've been sent by the Chinese, is that the Iranians destroyed 60% of Israel's F-35 fleet. That is, 40 airplanes were destroyed within a half an hour last night, and that means that Israel's lost the ability to carry out offensive air operations. You're not seeing that, but this is huge because it means they can do the same, and they are doing the same to U.S. air bases in the region. So the United States military is being systematically removed from the Middle East. I also had reports that there's been gunfire heard inside the presidential complex in Saudi Arabia, and I know the Houthis are probably going to be marching. In fact, they're already marching towards Riyadh. And so a lot of these Gulf monarchies are probably going to go. There may well also be regime change in Egypt. And of course, Israel is finished. You're not seeing this, but Hezbollah armies are already in northern Israel. And forces are moving from Syria and Iraq towards Israel. And the Turkish military is realizing that their President Erdogan has been compromised and is he's being sidelined. So we might see a restoration of the Ottoman Empire. Otherwise, it's going to be a Persian Empire. But this is all not being reported. But the important thing to understand is that all the oil revenue that people like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds relied on from the Middle East is being taken away from them. And although the English media is full of talk about some kind of oil crisis, it's not happening for most of the world because they are here in Japan, for example, the gasoline prices are where they were before the war started, and this is true of a lot of the world because they're no longer doing business with the criminals behind the fake Trump and the fake U.S. government. And here's another thing that, as an example of how fake it is, on April 1st, April Fool's Day, they announced they had they're going to go to the moon for the first time in 55 years. And they put out a picture of the trajectory, and it's shaped like a penis. Okay. The other thing is, I was shown again. I looked for the videos. They've been erased. Apparently, if you pay $400,000, you can get anything erased entirely from the entire internet. But anyway, I was shown videos of them inflating the rockets that were supposed to be, sending people to the moon. And then if you look at the people who were flying to the moon, well, they tick off all the DEI boxes. We have a person of color, a woman, and they put in a Canadian. But apparently, according to some sources, they had to cancel the flight because they forgot to put an LGBTQ person on board.
For the
Story that we're seeing in our corporate press is that Attorney General Pam Bondi was fired by Trump. Apparently, this is a move to avoid having her testify before Congress, but the people in Congress are having none of it. They're saying she has to testify, and then she's been replaced with a guy who's actually in charge of covering this stuff up. Listen to this. Her replacement, Todd Blanche, in this script. So the guy is basically saying, we're not going to go after all these rich billionaire. It ain't going to happen. And that the only thing that's going to get rid of these people is we're going to have to send in special forces to one of their press conferences where they're all gathered with their fake media and just arrest them all in front of all those cameras. That's what needs to be done. And something similar needs to be done of Angela Merkel, who's a Hitler descendant, and related to Barack Obama, who's another Hitler descendant, saying that they let in all these foreigners, these so-called Syrians and stuff, into Germany and gave them the right to vote in order to prevent the birth of a right-wing government in Germany. Here she is admitting it in this little short clip. This is the kind of people we're dealing with. This is the kind of filth that has to be removed and will be removed. And again, the United States is bankrupt. The Israeli-based Department of Homeland Security has been permanently defunded. And I repeat, we have a standing offer from the Dragon family to completely rebuild U.S. industry and infrastructure and cancel all your debts, public and private, and free you from Babylonian debt slavery. And the bonds are there. We've shown the proof that these are gold-backed, and they've been sent to the U.S. Treasury. And we're standing by to help, but you've got to get rid of these satanic criminals who've taken over your government. And we're hoping the military White Hats will do that. We promise they'll be fully funded, and the Americans can once again be the good guys, which was what they're supposed to be. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. With our midterms coming up this fall, I'm concerned that Trump's current actions might hurt any chances of retaining a conservative majority in the U.S. Congress. Do you have any thoughts on what might happen to either reclaim the integrity and trust of the conservative movements in the United States, demolish the fraudulence of our U.S. voting media system to actually have it become a fair and honest system, or some other unknown option that might restructure our political system so that this type of race will no longer be an issue?
Well, I think we need an interim military government to force a few things to happen before you can have a real election once again in the United States. First of all, people cannot make good decisions if they do not have accurate information. That means that the whole media has to be cleaned up so that they actually report the truth, because it's the truth that's going to set us free. The other thing, of course, is the elections are all fraudulent now. They're electronic and they're fake. So again, we'd have to reintroduce paper ballots and freedom of the press before you can have a real election. In the meantime, I suggest that the state governments, hold a conference to talk about getting rid of the federal government and then setting up something new with a new capital somewhere else, because the state government is still relatively clean. That's my advice. But as things stand under the current setup, any midterm elections are going to be just fake. Next question.
Hi, Ben. The real end game for the Khazarian mafia may be food shortages and famine due to energy shortages and fertilizer shortages, not fuel crisis, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on this, and is it preventable?
They have been trying very hard to engineer a hunger crisis, and they've been trying to cut off fertilizer to farmers, especially in the United States. But uh, there's enough food in the world. The Russians are having record crops, and they're going to try to engineer a food crisis, but they're not going to succeed. I guarantee you that. They tried before by paying farmers to stop growing crops and grow fuel instead. And when hunger started happening, people started rioting and they were forced to back off. Because when people actually get hungry, then they reach for their pitchforks. So any attempt to cause a food crisis would be immediate suicide for the Khazarian mafia. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Climate and energy lockdowns are starting to commence in a number of countries. There seems to be a scripted synchronicity to what's happening, and it seems like they are all in on it. Every country, it's one big club. You and I, we are not in it. That's a quote from George Carlin. The climate lockdown seems to be happening in Russia as well, as Putin and officials warn of, quote, the most powerful energy crisis in human history looming. What are your thoughts on this? Do we have to be worried about our energy as well?
Uh, it's only confined to the West, but there's definitely something very wrong with Russia too. I've been reading the official TASS news agency, and they're going along with this fake, you know, trip to the moon, and they're not talking about the fact that the Israel's Ben Gurion airport has been shut down. So there's something wrong with Russia, but most of the world is not controlled by these people any longer. You won't find this sort of stuff in Africa or most of East Asia, uh, or even South America at this point. It's really limited to the West and a part of Russia at this point, and we're close to the end game. But any desperate attempts to lock us all down and put us in a digital prison are not going to succeed. Too many of us are awake now. Next question.
Hey, Ben. Several countries are getting squeezed pretty hard with the oil crisis, especially those in Southeast Asia. Seeing the cost of fuel more than double, do you see relief coming from this anytime soon? What are your thoughts?
Um, any country that reaches a deal with Iran will get their oil. So it's really it's a move to force countries to cut their ties with the Khazarian mafia, and then they'll get their oil and their energy crisis will end. This crisis will end. This is what I'm hearing. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question today. Do you have any current information about what's really going on with Iran? The United States media has been suspiciously quiet for the past week or so. Doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere near as many military updates as we were previously. What do they want? What do they not want us to know?
Well, what they don't want you to know is that the United States has suffered the biggest military defeat in its entire history. You lost five aircraft carriers and hundreds of jets, and you've lost air superiority, which the Americans thought was their one invincible card. And I would say at this point that tens of thousands of U.S. troops have been killed, and they're covering that up too. So basically, they're covering up the fact that they've lost and they're being kicked out of the Middle East. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week, and I hope to see you next week, and hopefully soon you won't have to see that fake Trump and his acting troupe on your screens. Okay, bye for now. This is something that involves liberating the American people. So First, let's take a look at this video about the Federal Reserve Board so you know actually who is going bankrupt, because it's not the American people. So, what the White Hats have been doing for over 20 years, we've been fighting the Satanists who've taken control of our monetary system, which is a system of mind control. And we've negotiated with the Russians, with the Chinese, with the BRICS, and we're getting ready to move to a new system, which will not involve a secret Satanist elite creating money out of nothing and then extracting resources from the rest of the world, which is a system that is in place now. And we to start this off, our plan is a complete jubilee. That is the end of all debt, public and private, and then a redistribution of assets so that everybody owns their own home, and people who already own their own home will be compensated otherwise. This is the plan we're working on. We've got a lot of support, but of course, we have still strong opposition. Take a look at this clip of a U.S. Congressman explaining. We all know now, at least anyone who's even vaguely aware, that the current system is controlled by blackmailed pedophiles, and they've taken away Donald Trump and replaced him with a fake, who's now trying to promote Kevin Warsh, a Bilderberger, as the new head of the Federal Reserve Board. And this is an attempt to increase debt slavery, which is something we do not want. And the other thing is, I'd like to point out, this is also about the liberation of the Jewish people from an ancient satanic cult. Take a look at this. This is a Chabad Lubavitch facility being attacked by a car. Take a look at this for a second. All I can say is that we need to hold the line firm because this time we really can end this if we all get together. They've done everything in their power. They tried to overthrow the Chinese government. They actually came pretty close. They got the number 2, the top of the military, to work for them, but he's been removed, and there's been a massive purge underway there. So the Khazarian mafia has lost their network in China. Something big is going to happen in Japan, but I'm not free to talk about that yet. But the other thing you need to know is that the British people, the Five Eyes, are now with the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the White Hats in the US working to liberate the American people from this mafia. And now I want to take a look at what they're doing with Alberta. The people of Alberta, as you can see from this next clip, are really hoping to get independent. And the only thing I'd like to comment about that is the Albertans have a very legitimate gripe because their oil revenue is not being going to them in any way as it should be. But the real problem is not the East Coast establishment, as the Zionists or the KM would like to have you think. The real problem is that the Rockefeller brothers and their Khazarian mafia honchos have been preventing Canada from exporting its oil to Asia, which, would buy everything we have and more and would create an enormous boom for the entire west part of Canada. That's not being blocked by Ottawa. It's being blocked by, people in the Fortune 500 and Washington. People of Alberta, we understand your case, but this is about something much bigger. And at the end of the day, we're going to win this, I promise you, because 85% of the planet has been liberated, and it's just a matter of time. But let's make sure that this time the U.S. corporation is permanently shut down so it can be replaced by a democratic government of the people, by the people, and for the people, which is what it was supposed to be, not of the Satanists, by the Satanists, and for the Satanists, which is what it has become. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. It seems things are starting to ramp up here in the United States, especially with the economy. When are we likely to see prices start coming down? It seems to be pretty unaffordable for the average person right now.
Yeah, the problem is that the Khazarian mafia, who control your economy, have been trying to extract everything they can from the American people in order to keep their corporation afloat. And they do that by artificially jacking up food prices and other things. So the key to this is letting the government go bankrupt and replacing it with something new. Uh, Building a new capital elsewhere, then the average person will soon see their. I can promise this. I'm willing to bet my life on it that if we overthrow these people, we can double your living standards within a year by using a jubilee and putting the country under proper economic management. That way, we won't be outcompeted by the Chinese. And by the way, just an example of how much better their economic system is. In 2024, one single Chinese company built more ships than all the companies in the United States built in the 80 years since World War II. That's how different it will be when we have proper economic management, and we won't lose to the Chinese anymore. Next question.
Hi, Ben. I'm not sure many here find it troubling that you are sort of standing behind Carney, even though we all know his history. We all know the level of murderous blackmail he had to go through before being allowed to head the Bank of England, and we all know the level of blackmail he must be under now to be the Prime Minister of Canada. This about turn is troubling indeed. Even you referencing he may be the head of a North American union is also troubling, so I have to ask, what's going on? Can you agree at least to say that during this time of great turmoil and major change, the powers that be will look to take full advantage of this position to position themselves again in power, either directly or indirectly, and that this is the time we the people should not trust anyone? What are your thoughts?
Okay, let's explain about Mark Carney. I report the world as it is, not as I want it to be. Okay, Mark Carney is also a blackmailed pedophile, or he wouldn't have got into the job he had. What I was reporting, though, was what happened at Bilderberg. I mean, at the Davos summit, and the the reaction that took place there. So the people there really support him versus the fake Trump administration. But clearly, I reached out to Mark Carney when I was in Canada. He refused to talk to me or acknowledge me, and he's not going to be the head of the North America or anything else. He's just late in the game trying to change sides, but it's probably too little, too late. But what I did report was that there's a fundamental break within the Anglo-Saxon current power structure, but we don't want either side in charge. I'm no fan of Mark Carney, and I'm no fan of Howard Lutnick or either of these people. We want people completely different in charge, and that's what we're fighting for. So I know it made it look like I was in favor of Mark Carney, but no, I'm just reporting what happened at Davos, not what I think. Because I think we want none of these bastards. We don't want any blackmailed pedophiles in power, period. Next question.
Hi, Ben. There is currently an Asian meeting of leaders and diplomats in the Philippines. Is anything important actually being done here? Is Japan a part of it, or is this really not something that we should be paying attention to?
There's a lot of behind-the-scenes maneuvering. The Asians are preparing to offer $100 trillion to the West. And this is not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. This is strings-free to help you rebuild. These negotiations are about that as well as about eliminating the KM influence in East Asia. And there's some meetings going to be taking place in Japan, but the fundamental changes are coming, and it'll be good. They wanna help the West get rid of its satanic infection. That's what I can say at present. Next question, please.
Hi, Ben. We keep hearing about Myanmar and its military-run elections. Do you know what's going on there right now? Do you have anything to share?
Well, the country has been de facto split. The Karen peoples have declared their own new country, and there is a proxy battle between the white hat Western military and the Russians against certain Chinese factions who want to take over Cambodia and Myanmar and colonize them. And the new Russian defense doctrine is one of we don't let anybody invade anybody else, period. So they'll fight uh, with the Chinese if China is invaded, and they'll fight against the Chinese if the Chinese invade somewhere else. That's how this is working. So that's what I know about the situation in Myanmar. There's also a big battle over tin supplies and stuff. It's part of a sort of power struggle between the white hats and the Chinese to make sure the Chinese come on board with a new world paradigm that's not, a China-dominated world, but rather a multipolar world where East and West are equal partners, not one subjugating the other. Next question.
Ivan, we have our last question for today. What do you think of Elon Musk saying in a recent interview, stating that in about 4 to 5 years, AI will take over all of the jobs, money will be useless, and no one will need to work? Do you foresee this actually happening?
There is a faction that works for what the Gnostic Illuminati call a rogue artificial intelligence. So right now, the people in the West, they're spending all our future investment resources in giant data centers to build AI. It's a desperate last minute attempt to create something digital that's so powerful that it will enslave us forever. But it's not going to work because AI is artificial. It's not real. It does not affect control the original creation, and it never will be able to. You can't eat digits, and we control the power supply. But definitely, I think Elon Musk works for this rogue AI, and a lot of the Silicon Valley people who are trying to replace humans with silicon need to be dealt with. That's for sure. But anyway, next week I'll be having some meetings. And hopefully there'll be more to report. But let's see if the U.S. government shuts down, and let's see if we can make it permanent this time, so that the Republic of the United States of America can be revived. This is what we're all fighting for. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next week.
Hello, Patriots. I'm at Restored Republic via a GCR update compiled by Judy Byington. Bill Gates cloned thousands of babies on Epstein Island with a goal to replace humans with lab-grown, spiritually dead, programmable cloned slaves. Trump and his global military alliance have shut down the cloning labs and thus saved humanity's future. Remembering the Lord and His goodness will keep our hearts grateful, humble, and open to His guiding hand in our lives. Judy note, in 1823, the Rothschilds Illuminati deep state cabal took over all the financial operations of the Catholic Church, resulting in them owning the Catholic Church, Vatican, and Vatican Bank. By 1913, the Rothschilds deep state and other Satan-worshipping bankers had taken control of the U.S. monetary system. They soon established their privately owned Federal Reserve and IRS, running U.S. taxpayer monies through their privately owned U.S. corporation in the independent Washington, D.C., to their privately owned UK Crown in the independent city of London. Then the monies went on to their privately owned Vatican Bank in their independent Vatican City, and then out to their central banks across the world. About a month later, the monies returned to the Illuminati deep state cabal's New York Central Bank, where they lent it back, charging interest for use of the American people. Another way the cabal made money was through creating wars that they would finance on both sides, including World War II. Hitler was a Rothschild. At the end of World War II, with the help of certain Satan-worshipping deep state elites in the U.S. government, including H.W. Bush, he and Eva Braun settled in Argentina. He died there as an old man in 1962. During his last days, and with the help of U.S. deep state elites such as George W. Bush, Hitler established the Fourth Reich in the United States. H.W. Bush helped establish the CIA and Hitler's Operation Paperclip. Paperclip ran from 1946 to 1959. Judy note, followers of Satan believed Satan had both male and female characteristics. Hitler practiced Satan worshipping as a part of his MK Ultra mind control program that he established in the USA, Canada, and Australia through formation of the CIA. Their Satan worship involved having control over people's minds using God's most innocent beings, children. They organized pedophile parties, torture of victims, and child sacrifice to honor Satan in return for his promises of riches, power, and glory. Hitler had 5 children who carried on his Satan worship philosophy ingrained with the goal of total control of humanity. That is, Satan worship destroyed a belief in God, destroyed a belief in the sacredness of the family, and destroyed your God-given rights to freedom, all of which would destroy the nation.
Hitler's boys and girls were indistinguishable from each other because they were all androgynous, had both male and female characteristics. 1. Angela Merkel, Germany's longest-serving chancellor. 2. Theresa May, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. 3. Dalia Grybauskaite, President of Lithuania. 4. Nancy Pelosi, U.S. Democrat and Speaker of the House. 5. Clara Hitler, mother to Adolf, was a prostitute, undercover CIA agent, and the mother of U.S. President Barack Obama. When the bisexual Obama, while married to the former Oregon State football player Michael Robinson, illegally obtained the U.S. presidency, he had a goal to destroy America. Barack Obama and ex-CIA Dyer. John Brennan's Tuesday meeting assassination list. Deep state traitors running the White House were literally targeting whoever they wanted, including Americans, completely above the law. When officials like former AG Eric Holder under Obama were asked if Obama could assassinate Americans on American soil, Holder essentially said, yes. Brennan led the effort. Every week targets would be marked, while teams would be deployed around the world to take targets out, or by drone, including civilians and Americans, and the following week, they would meet again and do it all over again. The skiff on Telegram 2s. 18 Aug. 2026. Among Obama's many other crimes, he gave Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein the funding to push cloning experiments in pursuit of creating a slaved humanity. F. Got the message yet? On August 24, 2026, the global financial system crosses a threshold from which it cannot return. Christian B. Wallace Tier 4B ISO 20022 on Telegram 2s. 18 Aug. 2026 on Moan. 24 Aug. 2026 the ISO 20022 messaging, that defines how banks transmit payment information, completes its transition across all major banking rails. For the first time in history, SWIFT, Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, Bank of England, BRICS, IMF, and all high-value cross-border payment systems will speak the same transaction language. 2026, this has direct consequences. A real-time transparency. Every payment instruction, every field, every metadata tag is standardized. B. Nowhere to hide. Technical excuses disappear. Outdated formatting disappears. Opaque message. Structures disappear. The entire monetary system becomes visible, and visibility is the biggest weakness from the world's point of view of the fiat system. After the switch is completed on 24/08/26, a debt-based monetary system has nowhere to hide. Every insolvency becomes transparent. Every derivatives mismatch becomes obvious. Fractional reserve systems can no longer hide liquidity holes. Banks cannot create endless synthetic credit, fake monopoly money, behind opaque SWIFT messages. The legacy system becomes fully open and fully traceable. From a strategic standpoint, ISO 20022 is the final step needed before major sovereign systems transition to asset-backed settlements. XRP may serve as collateral for digital assets. On August 24, 2026, the old system becomes transparent, and because it is built entirely on debt, leverage, and the illusion of fractionalization, transparency guarantees it. G. Signed by Trump last night while you were sleeping were 2 executive orders. One destroys the IRS, the other opens the Federal Reserve payment to electronic assets and non-bank institutions. 18 Aug. 2026 1 DSTROIS the IRS. Forever. The DOJ wording, forever barred and precluded from investigating or prosecuting. That's not a break. That's a death certificate for the tax collection arm of the old system. The other opens the Federal Reserve payment rail to electronic assets and non-bank institutions without a banking license. He just opened the door to a system without banks. Unless you've already REPLACED the system of collection. QFS went live May 8 in 209 countries. Midnight running parallel to SWIFT. All sovereign citizens are getting a quantum ledger tied to their birth certificate bond, the value they stole from you the day you were born. Since 1933, your birth certificate has been traded as a security. Your social security number is a bond tracer number. Each human being is worth between $100,000 and $450,000 in stolen compound interest, illegal debt, and stolen labor value. JSARA Article 21, debt nullification, is being calculated now. Every single mortgage, every student loan, all of them. Every medical bill charged with illegal compound interest since 1971 is being calculated and entered into your ledger as you read this. The gold is in Fort Knox, 147.3 million Oz, but the audit team that entered on March 14 under Executive Order 14,271 found more. Vatican Bank came back with gold, Bank of England, Basel, nothing at all on any public ledger. Total value, not $692 billion, $43 trillion. That is the gold that is the backing for your new money. Trump said, I want to see the gold because he wants you to ask why. The answer, the gold is there and $43 trillion more, and it is yours. Tier 4B alert started 96 hours ago. Redemption centers were set up at 800 locations. Waiting for one sign, Trump walking into Fort Knox on camera and opening that 20-ton door. He opens it, and the EBS fires. The QFS locks. The EBS fires. When the QFS locks your debt, it vanishes. When your debt is paid off, you are free. They held you in bondage for 53 years. Each dollar you owed was a lie. Every payment of interest was a theft. The guy who said they steal a lot about to show it live on TV. The door OPNS once. Follow T/US Treasury Official 8. The old financial system is dead. The new system is live. XRP is the currency of the new world. Trump is leading the reset. 107 JFK Jr. On Telegram 2s. 18 Aug. 2026 join now. https://tme/107tg July 2026. The financial revolution is happening. Banks are collapsing. The old system is failing. The new system is rising. The old system dies. The Federal Reserve has controlled money for 113 years through debt slavery. The dollar is worthless. The banking system is corrupt. The financial institutions are criminals. The people are awake. The people are ready. The people are demanding change. The new system rises. NESARAGSARA is activated. The quantum financial system is live. The old financial order is finished. XRP is the currency of the new world. Ripple has joined SWIFT. XRP adoption is accelerating. Banks are switching to XRP. The XRP ledger now holds $4.18 billion in tokenized real-world assets. This is 344% increase in 5 months. This is exponential growth. The XRP explosion. July 10, 2026. XRP bullish technical setup. Robinhood chain recorded 433 million in 24-hour DEX volume. July 12, 2026. XRP ETFs launched. ProShares targeting July 14 for 3 XRP futures-based ETFs. Forbes ranks XRP as the 4th best cryptocurrency to buy, behind only Bitcoin, Ethereum, and BNB. Finance experts predict XRP soaring to $1,000+. This is institutional adoption. The bank collapse, banks are panicking. The old system is crumbling. SWIFT is being replaced by XRP. Central banks are switching to blockchain. The petrodollar is finished. The Federal Reserve is powerless. The banking cartel is broken. The financial elite are terrified. The gold standard RETURNS, gold is backing the new currency. Precious metals are the foundation. Real value is RESTURD. Gold prices at $4,069 per ounce. silver surging, platinum rising. The precious metals market is exploding. This is not accident. This is strategic. This is the return to sound money. Trump is leading the reset. Trump activated NESARA. Trump is forcing the financial system reset. Trump is ending the Federal Reserve's control. The new financial system is transparent. The new financial system is fair. The new financial system is decentralized. This is freedom. This is justice. This is the end of financial slavery. The moment, this is the biggest financial revolution in human history. This is the moment the old system collapses. This is the moment the new system rises. The banks are dying. The elite are panicking. The people are winning. Trump is winning. The financial system is being reset. The new era is beginning. Share this everywhere. The old financial system is dead. XRP is the future. The Great Awakening is not coming. It is already here. Humanity has lived inside a carefully constructed illusion, a prison made of money, lies, and silence. You were told that sickness is normal, that poverty is natural, that wars are inevitable. But beneath the surface, a different reality has been prepared. QFS, the quantum financial system, the bankers thought they could enslave the world forever with fiat paper and digital codes. They fed us inflation, debt, and endless interest. But the QFS is alive. It is not coming. It has already begun operating silently, replacing the rotten structure of SWIFT. Every hidden transaction, every corrupt transfer, every shadow deal, recorded, sealed, irreversible. Medbeds, the technology they hid from you. Imagine a chamber where the body's blueprint is restored, every cell recalibrated, every disease erased, cancers dissolved, organs regenerated, age reversed. This is not science fiction. These are Tesla-based technologies locked away in underground bases, denied to you while trillions were wasted on pharma and war. Now, for the first time, whispers rise. The veil is lifting, and the EBS, the emergency broadcast system, when the blackout comes, it will not be chaos. It will be clarity. The world will go silent, only to awaken with one unified transmission. The truths hidden for generations will be spoken without censorship, broadcast across every screen, every device. The lies will die in real time. Humanity is about to cross a threshold that no empire, no secret cabal, no black project can stop. The old system is burning down. The new system is already breathing. This is why the tension feels unbearable. The air itself is charged, vibrating with anticipation. Many sense it but cannot name it. You feel it in your chest at night, in your dreams, in the moments when the world glitches for a second and reality feels thinner. Remember this. You are not here by accident. You were chosen to live in this timeline, to witness the fall of Babylon and the rise of the Golden Age. Do not let fear blind you. Do not let doubt silence you. Share this transmission. Spread it like fire. Those who are asleep must see the signs. Those who are awake must prepare, because the moment of the Great Reset is not a question of if. It is only a question of when. And when it strikes, nothing will ever be the same again. The great silence before the signal. For months, the system has been whispering. Bank terminals flicker, satellites recalibrate, power grids stutter for seconds, then return as if nothing happened. To the untrained eye, glitches. To those who know, signals. What you're witnessing is not chaos. It's the final rewiring of the global network. The quantum financial system, QFS, is no longer a concept locked in secret halls. It breathes. It pulses. It's being tested in shadows, while the old fiat and you've made in recent weeks already passed through nodes you were never told exist. The banks you still see on the street are facades, like empty shells of a dead organism. Inside the core, quantum settlement, asset-backed transfers, incorruptible code. And what comes with QFS? GESARA, NESARA, debt release, restoration of stolen wealth, funding for suppressed technologies. This is why the silence feels so heavy. Because once the switch flips, there will be no turning back. Watch for these markers. Lights cutting out in government buildings for minutes at a time. News anchors losing audio simultaneously across networks. Sudden revaluation of currencies in small, insignificant nations. An unexpected global message looping across every screen. When it hits, remember this. The storm isn't coming. The storm is already here. You're just waiting for the broadcast.
But I have another question here that I really wanted to get to. The EBS, what does that look like? Is it, ABC, NBC, all of them just being pulled down, being reined in, or are we actually going to have like an actually alert go off on our phones, on our television sets, where it says, this is an emergency broadcast system, beep, beep, that kind of thing. Is that what it's going to look like, or how is the EBS going to look?
Okay, a couple of things. The intricacies, the details are not being, uh, you're not going to get to hear those. There's nobody in the public side going to get all the minutia of those details. That will play out like a chess game. There's options, there's times, there's timing, okay? Just like a lot of people would like to have had Trump do the Insurrection Act back there in 2020, in December 2020. But in gaming this out, there's ways you can proceed forward that have prayer of winning, because we're actually in a state of war. And there's ways you can blow the whole country apart, take it off the rails, stop business in America, as Reagan said, the business of America is business, and actually cause real damage that we might not be able to fix in our lifetime. So there's keeping tension on the lines. Like an old business partner I had, he said, it's all about fishing. Everything was about fishing. You got to keep tension on the line. You can't pull the hook out of the fish's mouth. You can't let them spit the hook out. You got to keep tension on the line. You got to play the fish, let them wear them out. That's a lot of what's happening here. And the EBS, I don't personally believe in gaming this out. I'm just trying to give you my perspective, and everybody here is just going to have to think about it and, literally pray about it and understand the powers that be, if you will, Trump and the people who invited Trump to run. Trump has said that he was invited to run. Who invited him? 200 generals. Well, we have about 800 generals in the American system. So that's about a quarter plus flag officers, admirals. And so there's people in the background that are working with, coaching, helping to game through this. Literally, actions and reactions. They make a move, we make a move, are being gamed out hourly to make sure that we don't blow the country apart, don't blow the world apart. So at this point, the election's already compromised. As Navarro said, full stop. There you go, full stop. That's what the option is, full stop.
All right.
So hold on, let me give you your EBS answer. So the point is, though, with an EBS at the same moment that you do that, probably not likely. Okay, that probably comes later, because as all of these militant operations that you're talking about, people start coming out of the woodwork, screaming bloody murder about the paused election. That'll probably take a little time to develop. It's probably a little further along the way. And at the point that it gets choked back to some certain point, what's really happening under a military command structure. If people start acting out like that, they won't get arrested and go to the judge and go to the judicial system. What Trump is announcing is that we're in a state of war, and enemy forces have infiltrated here in the country. So if you get arrested for acts of violence or trying to disrupt, your city, your location, etc., in any way, when you get arrested, you're going into a military detention location, and your trial isn't in 3 days. You're informed of your right to go before a judge. It can be indefinite. It probably will take a few days to weeks to months as they process some of these people. And again, you're in a national security emergency. Any acts like that will be treated completely differently.
Can you imagine
environment?
Can you imagine the stupid rebellious teenagers that are going to hit the streets and not know any better?
Well, but that's part of the reason I'm having this conversation with you, Nino. I'm trying to help them to understand and let the word soak out through parents, friends, family, coworkers, You need to think again. That's what this audience is about, Nino, is trying to bring some sanity. You could have all sorts of people on as guests, and they're going to blow up houses, kick in doors. It's going to be gunfights in the streets, blah, blah, blah. I actually don't envision that, and for cause. American people on the whole are pretty straight and stable. You may have some locations that are off the rocker and that are more concentrated with some of these people and these ideas where they've been helped by local politicians to go, off the rails. We'll have to sequester them off like we did Fallujah in Iraq, 3 fences deep, and strip search them when they come out, make sure they haven't got anything. If they want to leave, pamphlet the whole area, surrender or else. But that actually, this is a big country, and I don't want people running around unnecessarily in some state of panic. Is Trump, are the military, the generals and the other people around Trump, you have, it's all over the place. If there's 4 of them, 3 of them are, questionable, but of those 3, maybe one's the bad one. Most of them actually are going to go the right direction and take orders and do what they're supposed to do to keep the country stable. But those that can't do that will be dealt with very quickly, and they will not go to the county jail. They will go to a location where they're processed, and they're going to ride this out in a fenced-in location, and we'll get to them as we can get to them. And by the way, at that point, if you're going to declare some kind of expansion of the national emergency that already exists.
What we think we know as of twos, 19 Aug, 2026. Moan, 17 Aug. 2026 skiff goes silent as Kennedy exposes 17 Aug. 2026 Trump issued a stark warning after sensitive information about a covert U.S. operation in Iran was reportedly leaked, while an American F-15 pilot was missing. Trump argued the disclosure endangered the pilot by alerting Iranian forces and civilians, saying authorities are aggressively searching for the source. He said the media organization involved could be pressured to identify the leaker, declaring, "Give it up or go to jail." Monroe Doctrine 2. Trump's strategy is portrayed as a sweeping effort to reassert U.S. dominance across the Western Hemisphere. Cartels are treated as national security threats, while China, Russia, and Iran are framed as competing for strategic influence. Venezuela, Guyana, and Colombia form a crucial geopolitical triangle involving oil, military access, and regional power. The central message: this is presented as more than a drug war. It's a battle over who controls the hemisphere. Martial law on Telegram 2s. 18 Aug. 2026, the conservative province of Alberta, Canada, is voting to begin the process of seceding from Canada on October 19th. If it succeeds, Alberta will begin the process of seceding, pending a final vote next year. SEC. SCOTTBSSENT has ENCOURAGD Alberta, nodding they want sovereignty from the leftists in Canada. 2s. 18 Aug. 2026 Hollywood only called Mitchell Jackson a pedophile because he was the only one who wasn't one. He owned half of Sony, exposed Tommy Mottola as a straight-up devil, and refused to be their puppet. So the Illuminati destroyed him. He was 100% innocent. His daughter faces 20 years in prison as evidence exposes massive billionaire fraud scheme. Phoebe Gates's billion-dollar startup company, FIA, has been accused of cookie stuffing, artificially inflating web traffic to defraud customers, influencers, and investors. Now she could be heading to jail. When is Bill getting charged? Gitmo TV on Telegram 2s. 18 Aug. 2026 another Democrat ARRESTED for fraud and money laundering. Never got it. While these Democrat crooks got millions and spent it on everything except what it was supposed to be used for.
Strikes on US military targets in Europe if the conflict with Washington escalates further. According to the Financial Times, potential targets being discussed include US-linked military assets in Cyprus and Bulgaria.
This is all part of the awakening. And Iran, a country I know well, that most Americans couldn't point out on a map is a country full of very, very good and nice people. They're kind people, they're fun people. There's a great sense of humour that they have, and they're very beautiful. But the people that have led them, that were installed in Iran by Mossad, Israel, and the US corporation, are truly evil. And that is what Trump is dismantling. The part that is in Iran that is truly evil. Iran is a beautiful empire that has never fallen, and it won't fall because of its history and the way that it's set up. They're good people. But what is being uninstalled and dismantled is the system that was installed to destabilize them because they refused to be a part of the international banking system. Oh, and by the way, Iran is on the road to joining BRICS. It's virtually installed, and Iraq is doing the same thing. And this is literally the final nail in the coffin of the Federal Reserve, which is part of the corporation. And the dismantling of US military bases will continue. It started in the Middle East, where missiles hit military bases. It will continue in Europe to dismantle the US military bases, because if they're not dismantled, they'll be used again. That's going on right now in plain sight. So don't be scared. This is all part of the dismantling of the old system. You are living in the Third World War, but the missiles are attacking the old bases and the old system. They're not attacking the people. So I would advise you to stay well clear of any US military bases wherever you are in the world. You know, if you go to Dubai, don't go anywhere near the military bases or the embassy. That's just sound advice, common sense. My next story is very interesting because it hasn't hit the mainstream media. 6 judges, top-level judges in America, have been arrested. Many lawyers have been arrested. Nothing in mainstream media. But this is all part of the dismantling of a corrupt system. Little word of advice for the new lawyers and the new judges. You're all having to go back to college, back to school, and learn what real law is, common law, not maritime law, not your naughty little book of Black's Dictionary where you twist the words. We're going back to God's law, the law of the land. So if you want to be ahead of the game, start training in God's law, common law, because maritime law is the law of the seas, and you're not a fish. Drew.
Next up, the SEC has proposed a major new regulatory framework that could make it easier for crypto companies to issue tokens and raise money legally. The proposal includes new exemptions and a potential safe harbor from securities rules. It's not final yet, but this is one of the biggest regulatory shifts for US crypto so far.
There's so much going on in the financial world right now. I mean, there is a number of major banks that are on the verge of collapse, and we're seeing the digital world move in. I've spoken to 4 banks in the last 7 days, and they're aware of what is going on, but they're not allowed to talk about it. And when I say I've talked to banks, I've talked at director level, not at teller level. I've talked at the top to the CEOs. They know what's coming down. Most of the team haven't got a clue. There is a very, very small group of people that have been informed and educated on how this system is going to change. And the reason they're not telling people is because most of them are going to lose their jobs. So they don't want to create unnecessary panic. It's coming. It's not far away. And this is why I urge you to protect what you have. And as I said yesterday, that if you're a European, There's a 500-page document where they want to bring in a 90% wealth tax. Well, that doesn't bother me because I'm not wealthy. I've got no money. And I'm not telling them if I have. This is where common sense comes in. When you've got a corrupt organization trying to steal from you, why would you tell them? Why would you tell them anything? Be wise. Be clever. In the old days, when I grew up, and Drew knows this as well, she's not as old as me, by the way. It's not the lighting, she's not as old. But parents used to hide money under the bed. They used to hide gold under the bed. They never told anybody about it. But now we believe we have to tell them everything. That's foolish. Use common sense.
Collapse of media for decades, the media called itself the Fourth Estate, the guardian of truth, the voice of the people. In reality, it was the loudspeaker of the cabal, scripted anchors, staged debates, and carefully engineered illusions. But the broadcast towers are no longer theirs. The silence has already begun. 18 Aug. 2026 at 01:44 GMT, 3 major networks simultaneously glitched. This was not accident. This was purge. CNN looped the same weather map for 77 minutes. BBC broadcasted a 9-second clip on repeat across all channels. Fox News showed nothing but an empty studio feed. What is happening behind the SCENES archive servers have been seized. Decades of news are vanishing overnight. Internal communications confirm entire editorial boards were dismissed without announcement. Anchors are disappearing, officially on vacation, but their desks remain empty. Streaming platforms quietly pulled thousands of documentaries and investigative reports. The narrative is collapsing in real time. The same voices that lectured you for years are no longer speaking. Why it matters because media was never just news. It was the operating system of mass control. It told you what to fear, who to trust, where to march, and when to obey. Without the media grid, their empire cannot function. The collapse is not simply silence. It is the erasure of their script. What comes next, do not expect the return of normal programming. Expect looped confessions of journalists under oath. Tribunal testimony played in place of late-night comedy. Screens showing the same message, the same footage, the same truth everywhere at once. Your favorite anchors will not return. Your talk shows will not resume. The stage is burned. The actors are gone. Next marker 9.5 entire studios will go black, not just channels. Networks will dissolve. Broadcasters will resign en masse. They will call it failure. They will say it was budget cuts. But the truth is simpler. The media has been tried. The verdict is guilty. The sentence is silence. When the screens go black, the truth goes live.
Media has MK Ultra'd much of society. Most people really don't even grasp just how much they're programmed day to day to day. Remember, Google did the testimony there at Congress, and one of the technical people said in their analysis that they could flip 15 million votes just by the way that they run their search engines from one party to another, one candidate to another. 15 million votes. That's unbelievable. And with AI augmentation, and then you throw events in there. You have an event here, an event there that affects the world, and it can push the vote one way or the other also. So it's we're in a very dangerous moment where, for example, who owns 51% of California Artists Academy, CAA, largest group there in Hollywood, hiring out the actors and promoting movies, things like that. Well, if China's controlling that aspect of the information we see through movies and things like that, that's a very big deal. And so it can affect your perspective on life. You add to that the news stations. So look at what happened with ABC, CBS, and MSNBC. They didn't want to cover the Trump speech. CBS covered part of it and then stopped. Why is that relevant? Because they're trying to affect the way that we think and shape that. you know, bringing a sledgehammer to it if they have to stop you from hearing things that they don't want you to hear. Or the way that, you know, for example, that Trump would say it, they want to take anything he says and regurgitate it their way. Well, this is what this means.
Tuesday, August 18, 2026. The U.S. military search for ancient relics and Hillary's interest in Gilgamesh and the search for the bodies of the biblical buried Nephilim. Is this why the U.S. really went to war in Iraq? On December 13, 2018, a leak from the FOIA release of State Department emails allegedly claimed that Hillary Clinton was requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of the buried Nephilim. This should explain their beliefs with Baal and Moloch, as both are mentioned in the Bible and go back centuries. The tomb of Gilgamesh was found by an archaeologist by the name of Jorg Fassbinder using LiDAR. It was all mentioned all over the media at the time. It was going to be open to live, and answers would hopefully be given about our. The U.S. military invades Iraq. The military kicked out Jorg Fassbinder and his team and quarantined the area. They then brought in trucks, set up an entire military base at the excavation site, dug all throughout the night, and took the tomb and anything else they found. The story completely vanished from the media and was never talked about again. Why was Hillary Clinton so interested in Gilgamesh and the buried Nephilim? What do they know? What did they find out from the DNA samples? And you still question who these people really are and what they believe in. The writing is on the wall.
$40 trillion debt bombshell. America enters the danger zone. $3 billion a day in interest as Treasury yields erupt. U.S. Treasury Center on Telegram 2s. 18 Aug. 2026. Breaking special report. America is approaching a financial threshold once considered unimaginable. The U.S. national debt is closing in on $40 trillion. Borrowing costs are surging, and Washington's interest bill is approaching $3 billion every single day. This is no longer simply about a giant number on the debt clock. The cost of carrying the debt itself is becoming the story. The $40 trillion line U.S. federal debt is now within striking distance of the historic $40 trillion barrier. At the same time, Washington recorded a staggering $432 billion deficit in July alone. Through the first 10 months of fiscal 2026, the deficit has reached approximately $1.8 trillion, with the full-year figure projected around $2.1 trillion. America isn't merely carrying enormous debt. It is continuing to add to it at extraordinary speed. The real-time bomb, interest between October 2025 and July 2026, net federal interest costs reached approximately $963 billion, approaching $3 billion per day. That money doesn't build factories, roads, or infrastructure. It services yesterday's debt. And as older government debt matures and is refinanced at today's higher rates, the pressure grows. Wall Street just sent a warning. Another signal has emerged from the Treasury market. A recent auction of 30-year U.S. government bonds produced a yield above 5.2%, the highest auction yield for that maturity since 2001. That matters because higher yields mean Washington must pay more to borrow. The combination is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. More debt, bigger deficits, higher interest costs, more expensive refinancing. The debt machine feeds itself. This is where the cycle becomes dangerous. Washington runs deficits and issues more debt. That debt creates additional interest costs. Higher interest expenses increase federal spending pressure, potentially requiring still more borrowing. Debt creates interest. Interest creates spending pressure. Spending pressure creates more debt. And when the starting point is nearly $40 trillion, even small changes in borrowing costs can eventually translate into enormous sums. America AT, the crossroads. The question is no longer whether America will cross $40 trillion. The real question is what happens afterward, if trillion-dollar interest bills, multi-trillion-dollar deficits, and expensive long-term borrowing become the new normal. Because somewhere between $40 trillion in debt and $3 billion a day in interest, America's debt problem stops being an abstract number. It becomes a race between American economic growth and the cost of Washington's accumulated debt. Boom! The Kennedy prophecy. Trump reposts JFK's chilling warning to America. the ruthless conspiracy working from within exposed. Trump office on Telegram twos. 18 Aug. 2026 Donald Trump has ignited a firestorm across the patriot movement by sharing President John F. Kennedy's prophetic warning about a ruthless conspiracy determined to destroy the nation from within. The statement, delivered decades ago, now lands with devastating clarity in the present moment as millions recognize the exact same forces still operating in the shadows. Kennedy addressed the severe danger of subversive activities targeting national security from inside the United States. He made clear that Americans must remain continually alert against those who work to sabotage the country from within. We should support the laws which the United States has passed in order to protect us from those who would destroy us from within, Kennedy declared, stressing that a strong and vigilant society can defeat any internal enemy. The heart of the warning unmasks an adversary that never marches with conventional armies. Instead, it advances through infiltration, choosing covert expansion over open invasion. It substitutes subversion for free elections and intimidation for free choice. Kennedy described a tightly organized, highly efficient machine that fuses military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations into one coordinated system. Its preparations stay hidden, its errors are buried, and its dissenters are silenced. The entire apparatus runs with a wartime discipline no free democracy was ever meant to match. By elevating these words, Trump is drawing a direct line between the conspiracy Kennedy confronted and the globalist network patriots face today. The same monolithic structure that rejects democratic values continues to push its agenda through institutions, media, and bureaucracies. The multi-generational struggle for America's soul is now reaching its decisive phase, where Kennedy asked whether national security restraints must be more strictly observed to counter this kind of internal attack. Trump is supplying the resolve and the results the people have demanded. The patriot community has answered with overwhelming force. The globalist elements who embedded themselves inside the system are running out of time and cover. Kennedy's warning stands as living proof that truth cannot be permanently suppressed. The infiltration is being dragged into the light, the machinery is being dismantled, and the victory of the American people is closer than at any point in recent memory. The prophecy is no longer history. It is the battle plan of the present hour. Ag arrests dormant deep stater, no statute of limitations on treason, Juan O. Savin, JFK Jr. 18 Aug. 2026, the U.S. Navy Judge Advocate General's Corps has arrested another dormant deep stater responsible for the long-debunked Steele dossier and Operation Russiagate, which weaponized the Department of Justice against President Donald J. Trump in July 2016. On Wednesday, August 12, JAG investigators apprehended Elizabeth Dibble, former Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in London, at her residence in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Elizabeth Dibble remained largely unknown until sources at JAG's primary office at Naval Air Station, Pensacola, informed of her arrest. The indictment ties Dibble to the origins of the FBI's 2016 Trump-Russia probe. In May 2016, Australian High Commissioner Alexander Downer met Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos in a London bar. After WikiLeaks released hacked Democratic emails in July 2016, Australian officials contacted the State Department's Deputy Chief of Mission in London, Dibble's position, about the conversation. This tip helped open Crossfire Hurricane. The tip proved a product of Dibble's imagination. Papadopoulos never mentioned Russia or Clinton. Downer claimed Papadopoulos supplied proof that Trump and Vladimir Putin concocted stories to sink Clinton's campaign. Dibble told then FBI Director James Comey that Trump and Putin were in cahoots to tank Clinton's bid and that the Steele dossier was authentic. Compiled by former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele and funded by the Clinton campaign and DNC via Fusion GPS, the dossier was discredited. President Trump and acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen authored an indictment against Dibble on January 15, 2020, days before Trump departed the White House for Mar-a-Lago. When he ceded provisional control to the military, he handed JAG the paperwork. Why JAG took 6 years remains unclear. Better late than never. At 11:00 p.m. on August 12, JAG personnel and military police set up a perimeter around Dibble's home. Loudspeakers announced a valid military arrest warrant and ordered her to exit. When no response came, agents forced entry with smoke and CS grenades, then breached the doors. Dibble, 69, coughed and rubbed her bloodshot eyes as agents encircled her. "What's this about?" she asked. "Treason," the lead JAG officer replied.
August 18th, 2026, Russia shipping drones explosives to rebuild Iran's supply after U.S. Israeli strikes. According to reports, we're hearing that they are preparing for escalation. Now, we had heard speculation that Russia might be getting involved in the conflict. Take a look. About a month ago, had Russia helped Iran target CIA sites in the Gulf? Reports of Iran targeting sites belonging to U.S.'s CIA first emerged in the early days of the U.S.-Israelis war with Iran, and we're hearing that Russia could not only be supplying intel, but now, as of today, we're hearing also supplying them with bombs and drones to further escalate the conflict. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, in addition to that, we are hearing, take a look at this, Iran threatens new offensive while the U.S. rules out extending the ceasefire deal. We're hearing that Iran has now put a bounty on the heads of U.S. troops. They get $60,000. Now, in addition to that, we've also heard that they have said that there will be cyber attacks all around the world, specifically as well in the United States of America. And we've been seeing attacks on our water systems, attacks on various cities. There have also been threats by the IRGC to take out our power grids as well. We're hearing that they are saying they're preparing to escalate this further, positioning their leadership in the IRGC to begin an offensive against the United States. And we're hearing that those leaders specialize in terrorist attacks. Now, take a look here. Trump says there currently are no planned talks with Iran. So talks have totally fallen apart. Tehran says the Strait of Hormuz still is shut. Now, Donald Trump also threatens to bomb Oman, with Iran war stuck in a stalemate as 60-day negotiation period has come to an end. And take a look at this, coming out today as well, 3 hours ago, updated. The UAE says 2 missiles detected earlier were launched from Iran towards them. So we're hearing that not only is Iran preparing to attack, they are also starting to initiate in various parts of the region. And take a look at this. Baseless. Iran rejects the UAE's claims of 2 ballistic missiles from Tehran as Trump holds a call with the UAE president. And take a look at this as well. Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, aide to Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, gives Hamas a stark ultimatum: disarm or Israel gets U.S. backing to finish
these people off once and for all. So I want to start this week with a message from the Dragon family to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. You have been provided with bonds. This is based on gold that we have handed over to you. And if you do not honor these bonds, it means you will be supporting, and as such, you will be considered a war criminal and you will be hunted down. So, Scott Bessent, if you do not honor those bonds, you and any other members of the Treasury Department who block this will be actively hunted down as war criminals. This is the only warning you will get. Next time, it'll just be a knock on your door. And what people in the United States need to understand is that if the Dragon family bonds are released, then the U.S. will be out of bankruptcy, all your debts will be written off, unlimited funds will be available for rebuilding U.S. infrastructure, for rebuilding the U.S. economy, and the state of Israel, which is satanic, will be replaced by a multi-ethnic, multi-religious state of Judea. This is what is at stake. And if Scott Bessent continues blocking it, and any other members of the Trump administration continue blocking it, they will be hunted down. And if you're in the U.S. military, you need to understand that the current fraud in Florida is not Donald Trump. The real Donald Trump was 6'3". This guy's 5'8". He's a fake. He's not your supreme commander. Now, I know that the U.S. Navy is no longer obeying this fraud. He ordered them to protect ships in the Straits of Hormuz, and the Navy refused outright. The U.S. Army is also not going to send troops on the ground to fight for this satanic regime. And the Air Force commanders who are still obeying these criminals are war criminals, and they will be executed for treason. They will face the death penalty. So if you're in the Air Force, you better start disobeying illegal orders, or you will be executed as a war criminal. Okay, this is going to happen. The majority of the military is not with the campaign. And now we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with so that people understand this has nothing to do with the United States. First of all, Chabad is a cult that believes we are cattle. That means that they can or eat us or do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. And this is, this is real. So, for example, harvesting the skin off of Palestinian people. These are the kind of people we are fighting. Okay, they're not religious people. They are Satanists. And not only that, they are banning Christianity. They're threatening to put people in jail for promoting Christianity in Israel. That's who we are dealing with. And this is not going to be allowed to continue. And the other thing I want to point out is that this has nothing to do with the Jews or Judaism. These people are not Jews. Okay, here you can watch a gathering of 10,000 Jews under the Grand Rabbi Aaron Teitelbaum, showing that the Jews do not support Israel and do not support Zionism. Okay, and we now know that Donald Trump is a member of this Chabad cult. And not only that, the Justice Department has just released more documents showing that he is a child rapist. I'm talking about the fake Trump we're seeing now in Florida, not the real one. Okay? They've had him around for a long time. And this war is definitely ending. We're getting more and more credible reports that... now, I've been reluctant to say this, but this photograph emerged of what appears to be his dead body. Now, the other thing is, I need to inform the people of Turkey that there's something wrong with your leader, Recep Erdogan. He is either compromised by Israel or he's a fake who will replace the original Erdogan. And this can be seen because when Israel attacked Turkey, he tried to blame Iran. That shows that he is a compromised asset. You need to remove him, and you need to join with the Iranians to move into Israel and liberate the people there. Now, about 2 million Israelis have fled the country. That's 1 out of 5 people. Most of them have been underground for more than 10 days. The cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa have been completely destroyed. And also the United Arab Emirates, which is run by satanic crypto Jews, is also being destroyed. It is not a real Arab country, and its leader will have to surrender, and the government of Bahrain has fallen. So this is going to end, but we really need to move in to Florida and finish off the fake Donald Trump and his handlers. And also, listen to this former CIA operations director, John Stockwell, talk about how... So the United States, run by this criminal cult, Chabad, has been the main source of terrorism in the world for a very long time. And then, once again, as I said at the beginning, the Dragon family will be willing to provide unlimited funding. There will be no debt or payments by the American or European people. They will just be freed from a criminal network that has taken them over. And no matter what, they've already faced a military defeat, and they're not going to be able to start World War III, which is what they're now... They actually have come out of the closet and said, we want to start Armageddon, and their own writing say, and then enslaving the rest to bring on their, Lucifer. These aren't rational people, and you're not going to be able to debate with them. We need to capture them. We need to remove them from power. If you are in the U.S. military, you must not obey these criminals. They are not Americans, and they don't have the United States interest in mind. So we are close. I think we can end this soon. But no matter what, we're not going to let them start a nuclear holocaust. And don't worry about Israeli nuclear blackmail, because that has been neutralized. And even if they do manage to set off a few nukes, then Israel will cease to exist. One bomb is enough to completely obliterate that entire nation. And so if you're in a position to control those nukes, make sure they're not used. The other thing is I'm getting multiple warnings from high-level sources in the U.S. military white hats that the Khazarian mafia, the Israelis are planning a massive false flag attack in the United States, which they will try to blame on Iran. But at this point, nobody's being fooled. They're not, I was fooled in 9/11. I said, oh, we got to go get bin Laden. And so were most of us. Now, nobody is fooled. Their false flags are going to be directly traced to them, and they will be made responsible. So they are planning something very nasty in the United States, and I recommend that the U.S. military and police authorities monitor all Chabad Lubavitch synagogues, because that's where these people are coming from. They don't think we're human, and they don't care about killing us, and they have to, and they're not Jewish, okay? So my advice is to go in to all the Chabad synagogues of Satan and round everyone up, put them in a holding cell until they can be questioned, and then we can end this. But I believe humanity is about to be liberated, and we're about to wake up from a long and terrible nightmare. Okay, that's what I have to say for myself this week. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. In my opinion, Mark Carney did not really condemn the Israeli and U.S. attack on Iran, only that they did not consult the United Nations, but condemned Iran's response to the attack. His voice lacked any real conviction, like most Western leaders who are forced to read the Zionist script. What are your thoughts on this and Carney right now?
Well, Carney has been visiting Epstein Island, so they have some sort of blackmail over him, which is why he is being forced to pull his punches. Personally, I'd like to see David McGuinty, the Canadian Defense Minister, remove Carney until his blackmail can be exposed, and help with, work with the U.S. military white hats and the British military white hats to end the control of the Anglo-Saxon military by Satanists and by blackmailed pedophiles such as Keir Starmer. So clearly they've got some dirt on Carney, although, he's trying very hard, despite the blackmail, to do what he can, but because he's compromised, he needs to step aside. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Are the White Hats currently on the side of Trump and Israel? And if they're on the side of Trump, are they on the side of the real Trump or the fake Trump? And who do you think is the Trump right now making the decisions in the White House?
The real Trump was with the White Hats, and he was critical of Israel. And like I keep saying, he has not been seen since June of 2025 when he went to a G7 meeting in Canada, and I suspect that Carney had something to do with his disappearance. And the Trump we're seeing now is very clearly not a white hat. He's working for the dark side, and he's trying to start because his group does not want to lose control of the financial system and the source of their power.
As for your Army veteran McGinnis, he is a Hamas supporter and converted to Islam. Iran has been the safe harbor and financier for worldwide terrorism since its horrific takeover of the country. The citizens of Iran are celebrating everywhere around the world, and you have seemingly posted fake poll numbers that have to be wrong. More people in the world are grateful to be rid of the insane extremist Muslims than are against it. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, as a journalist, I have to talk to all sides, and I have direct contacts with people in Mossad and MI6 and the CIA and military intelligence, as well as with the Iranians, and I try, of course, each one of them will try to send me disinformation, but the fact is, there are white hats in all of these groups, and they are fighting for the good of humanity, and I try to make sure to filter out disinformation they provide me with, but if some gets through, my readers will point it out and I'll issue a correction. But there are a lot of white hats in these agencies, and we're working to get rid of the dark hats who are trying to lead us into World War III. As far as your claims about Iran being the source of terrorism, there's just no evidence for that, none whatsoever. All that has been blamed on Iran has been traced ultimately to Israel and to the Mossad dark hats. So you're being fooled by propaganda. And the other thing is, these Chabad occultists have been trying to start a war between Muslims and Christians in order to kill 90% of humanity. So they are the ones behind this campaign to vilify Islam. And Islam is not, if you really study what it really means, there's nothing to be worried about real Islam. These fake Islamic extremists work for Israel. They're not Muslims. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Whatever happens to all of those secret dragon families? We really haven't heard a whole lot about them recently. Is there a reason for this? Have they gone underground? We would like an update.
No, the dragon families are on the case. As I've mentioned in my talk, they have presented the U.S. Treasury with ultimatums and bonds that can be used to finance a massive project to turn this planet into heaven and earth. And the other thing is, of course, the reason why the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. military has been destroyed in the Middle East is because of help from the dragon families. The Iranians could not have destroyed all the U.S. military bases in the Middle East alone. And they could not have shot down all those U.S. airplanes alone. They have Russian and Chinese help, and that is because of the dragon family. Next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. Do you believe the sentiment that it's the Satanist Zionists that are controlling the world? So many other celebrities and public figures seem to believe this and are extremely careful about what they say in terms of criticizing the state of Israel. People like Andrew Tate and other various celebrities that have recently come to light have gotten in trouble for criticizing Israel or even deplatformed. Do you also believe that Israel had a hand that Charlie Kirk's wife is a Mossad agent?
The problem is, people who criticize Israel have been systematically murdered and killed, so prominent people are very scared, and those who do come out openly against Israel need to take care of themselves. So but this is going to end. And the other thing is, these people do not control the world. They control the central banks, and that's what we need to remove their control of. But right now, 85% of humanity is no longer under their control. So the only thing they control is part of the West, and it's that control that we are trying to end. And this means replacing Israel with the state of Judea, and that's what is going to happen. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week, except one more thing. Google has been falsely blocking our site, and that means they're supporting war criminals, and we will make the Google management criminally responsible for this blatant censorship of the truth. And if you don't remove that block on our site, we will make sure you go to jail. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself this week, and I hope to see you again.
Judy note, in 1823 the Rothschilds' Illuminati deep state cabal took over all the financial operations of the Catholic Church, resulting in them owning the Catholic Church, Vatican, and Vatican Bank. By 1913 the Rothschild deep state and other Satan-worshipping bankers had taken control of the U.S. monetary system. They soon established their privately owned Federal Reserve and IRS, running U.S. taxpayer monies through their privately owned U.S. corporation in the independent Washington, D.C., to their privately owned UK Crown in the independent City of London. Then the monies went on to their privately owned Vatican Bank in their independent Vatican City, and then out to their central banks across the world. About a month later the monies returned to the Illuminati deep state cabal's New York Central Bank, where they lent it back, charging interest, for use of the American people. Another way the cabal made money was through creating wars that they would finance on both sides, including World War II. Hitler was a Rothschild. At the end of World War II, with the help of certain Satan-worshipping deep state elites in the U.S. government including H.W. Bush, he and Eva Braun settled in Argentina. He died there as an old man in 1962. During his last days and with the help of U.S. deep state elites such as George W. Bush, Hitler established the Fourth Reich in the United States.